ready, Mr. Chair.
My feet are still absolutely.
Whenever you're ready. Calling to order the Lebanon Planning Board meeting for December 9th, 2024, 6:30 p.m. at Council Chambers, City Hall, or remote via the virtual platform LebanonNewHampshire.gov/live. Mr. Corwin, would you like to remind the folks that might be connecting remotely as to how they can participate?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Bear with me 1 minute. This meeting is being conducted in accordance with New Hampshire RSA 91A. It is being held in council chambers in Lebanon City Hall and also through the city's virtual platform. If you wish to participate remotely, there are instructions on how to enter the meeting available on the city's website at lebanonnh.gov/live. You can also participate by phone. Instructions on how to do so are available on the city's website. If you have any difficulty accessing the meeting through the virtual platform or by phone, you can try emailing me at tim.corwin, Corwin.
Excuse me, Chair.
Yes. Yes, Paula.
Hello?
Yes.
Oh, Paula can't hear us at all.
Maybe not.
Thanks, Paula. If anyone has any difficulty accessing the meeting through the virtual platform or by phone, you can email me at tim.corwin@lebanonnh.gov, and I will try to assist you as best I can. Please note that if there is a problem with the remote meeting platforms, the meeting will continue as the only legal requirement under RSA 91A is to have an in-person meeting. If you are participating remotely or by phone and wish to speak when public comment is allowed, you can simply unmute yourself and begin speaking during the public comment portion of the public hearings. If you like, you may also use the raise hand feature in Teams, and I will try to monitor that. Before speaking, please state your name and community of residence. If you live in another community, please be sure to state the name of the community where you live. For those attending in person, if you have a comment or question, please step to the podium during the public comment portion of the public hearings to be recognized by the chair on the far side of the room. And again, remember to state your name and your community of residence. And if appropriate, please be prepared to spell your name for the recording secretary. And with that, I will turn it back over to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Corwin. Do we have a notice of regional impact this evening?
We do. Bear with me for a second. Today was the application deadline for public hearings to be held at the Monday, January 13th, 2025 Planning Board meeting. We received 4 applications for today's deadline. The first is an application by Robert and Brenda Owens and Dustin and Tong Fei Meltzer, 163 Meriden Road, tax map 121, lot 6, and 161 Meriden Road, tax map 107, lot 213. Zoned R3. This is a request for approval of a boundary line adjustment between lot 121-6 and lot 107-213, and a voluntary lot merger of lot 121-6 and 121-5. This is Planning Board application PB 2025-01-BLA-VLM. The second is an application by CWM All Waste LLC regarding 40 North La Bombard Road, tax map 51, lot 10, zoned light industrial. This is a request for a 2-lot minor subdivision. This is Planning Board application number PB 2025-02-MIN. Finally, there is not finally, but the third application is Choice Storage LLC regarding 0 Etnet Road, tax map 27, lot 17, plus a large number of other properties in the area. This is a request for a conditional use permit pursuant to section 508 of the Lebanon zoning ordinance for proposed planned business park and for preliminary major subdivision approval of a proposed 4-lot subdivision. This is application number PB 2025-03-PMAJCUP. And finally, we have an application from the City of Lebanon regarding 0 Barrow Street, tax map 77, lot 106, zoned residential 3. This is a request for a conditional use permit, site plan review, and major subdivision approval of a proposed 5-unit cottage development. This is Planning Board Application 2025-04-SPR. Staff recommends that none of the applications received today have the potential for regional impact.
Any discussion or questions? We have a motion to accept.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Patrick. Do we have Kathy online? And
Yes, I'm here, and I am out of town today.
Okay, and are you participating as a planning board member or a member of the
Yes.
public? Okay, so
As a
we'll do-
member,
So we'll do a roll call. We'll begin with you, Kathy.
yes.
And Kellen?
Yes.
Patrick, yes.
Richard, yes. Oh,
Andrew, yes.
Jerry votes aye.
Eric, yes.
Brian, yes.
Okay, it is unanimous. Thank you.
Then, Andrew, we just need to confirm if anyone is in the room.
Oh,
If-
she mentioned it. I
Oh, she
believe.
did, I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Public hearing items, number 3A, Brickyard 1 Nominee Trust, 174 Hanover Street, tax map 48, lot 4, and 0 Hanover Street, tax map 48, lot 2, and 0 Hanover Street, tax map 48, lot 1, and 238 Hanover Street, tax map 63, lot 1, zoned R1, R01, R3, RL3. Request for site plan review and a conditional use permit pursuant to sections 308.2, 310.2, 311A.2, and 501.2 of the zoning ordinance for a proposed 474-unit multifamily planned unit residential development, or PURD, totaling plus or minus 731,600 square feet in size, consisting of 11 buildings, together with parking, utilities, landscaping, access, and other related site improvements. Applicant also requests a conditional use permit pursuant to section 308.4 of the zoning ordinance to allow an increase in the maximum permitted building height from 45 to 55 feet. This item is PB 2024-22-CUPSPR, continued from November 12th, 2024. I do have a bit of an order of operations for how it is that we might be able to best use our hearing this evening. That being said, do you have any opening framing that you would like to offer, Mr. Corwin?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
And likewise, Mr. Fenstermeister, do you have anything that you would like to add before we kind of set the stage?
Oh, just glad everyone got here safe.
Same, and we're happy for you as well. This session is principally designed for the board to kind of revisit the variety of hearings that have been conducted to date and to surface information that perhaps has been asked, but for which perhaps there has not been the most fulsome of answers that we might be looking for, or perhaps there are new things that have come up that people would like to engage questions on. We'll probably then sort of move into a space of sounding out certain conditions of approval that would be suitable for this project, and to engage in a discussion with the applicant around the applicant's support for those conditions. That's our primary purpose for this evening, in order to set ourselves up in a subsequent meeting to actually have a motion to put forth and to vote upon as far as the support for the support or the rejection of the application, and in the instance of a support, certain conditions of approval that might be above and beyond the boilerplate. If we are so fortunate as to move through that part of our agenda at a good clip, we may engage in what I'm calling a secondary discussion, which is looking at the issue of the CUP request around building height, and likewise the issue of the density bonus for the PURD style of development. If those do not get attended to fully this evening or at all, those will be our first order of business on our next time to get together. And of course, because we are anticipating having another meeting, another hearing, if only for the purpose of actually having a motion to vote upon, I believe we are in a position where we'll need to be asking the applicant for an extension in order to accommodate that, the only variable being whether it is as a special meeting in the remainder of this month, or if it is our regular hearing meeting on the 13th of January. So that's, I think, what we're trying to achieve. We do have a fair amount of other business, so I would like to try to kind of move through this item at a reasonably good clip of setting aside an hour for the conversation, and let's see where we get to at the end of that period.
Mr. Chair, I just want to introduce the board's consultants are available online tonight. We have Doug Osler from Wesson and Sampson. That's the board's traffic engineer, peer reviewer. So feel free, he's here to answer any questions that you may have or assist in any way that he can. And we also expect to have Steve Keach from Keach Nordstrom Associates, who is serving as the board's reviewing engineer for this application. Steve, are you online? I don't see you. So if he's not here, hopefully he'll be able to join us soon.
Great. Also, before this meeting, a distribution went out from staff inviting board members to percolate on and have at the ready some of the questions that they would like to ask the applicant so that we might make the best use of our time. Do people have those present? I've got a printout of the questions that I have. Do others have the same? And could we perhaps identify someone to kind of quickly collate and identify the key themes and perhaps structure the meeting around that?
That might be more challenging than simply going through and crossing things off as they get asked.
Okay. Let us then work perhaps from the material that I have in front of me as the general topics, and then as people have things to add to those particular topics, we'll entertain them at that point. And of course, my list is limited, so therefore it probably doesn't anticipate some of the subject areas that you're interested in. Very good?
Great.
All agreed?
Where to begin?
Couple of boilerplates. One is, one of the general conditions I would have would be the applicant's satisfaction of any open staff comments or requests that are conveyed by a staff member to the effect, or engineering reviews to be forthcoming. These would seem to be a standard condition of approval.
Yeah, and I had a little slideshow, but I don't need it because it was just going to say, we've had, I would say in terms of all the technical reviews,
Yep.
we've received all those, we've addressed them, and hopefully Steve didn't drive up the way I just came up because that was not good. Hopefully he's okay. But I think, for the complexity of the project and, the amount of development there is, that Steve's comments were pretty straightforward and of engineering in nature and can be addressed.
Great.
And I think we had a number of ones in terms of the staff comments, we focused on the technical ones. Those are all in the plans. Tim has, comments related. I think they're more like clarification, clerical type of, for the working document, to make sure all the numbers and all the information is shown as needed. Those won't result in any changes to the design. It's just more clarification.
Your answer is responsive to my second condition, which is to ensure that the board can rely on staff judgment and follow through on matters that may not be complete or fully detailed, for which the board could not possibly comment. Okay. The next subject area that I have is walkability, to which I think it might actually be useful if we could get on screen a view of the property and where the information is detailed as far as the crossings,
Yeah.
sidewalks, new sidewalks, proposed
Tom,
new
can
sidewalks, and
you
other
bring that
options.
up? We have our plan. Just, if you had a chance to read through the comments, we did address the PBAC comments. And, and I've talked to Tim about this. There's a deficiency in this area, regardless of this project, with the schools and connections. We have our connections, we're working, we've done the survey and things like that at the Old Etna, Hanover Street intersection.
Could we make that drawing any bigger? So
Yeah, can you just scroll it, what's easiest to go?
blow it up somehow?
Yeah, if we're looking at the northern end at the Old Etna, probably shouldn't have used the green on the screen, but, creating a crossing at that intersection, and I think again, this is all within the right-of-way, so I think, Brian, we'd have to talk, but there's a commitment to do that. There were some comments about, as Hanover Street extension goes north. Again, surprising that there's no public sidewalk there now. But that's something that in talking with the applicant, we put it in the PBAC response letter that there's a commitment to whether it's funding or studies, because if you walk that, it's a steep slope down the side, there's wetlands, no right-of-way survey has been done. There's a number of unknowns there that there's not really a position to commit to constructing anything, but I think it'd be important, whether it's part of this project or, part of a city's future plan there, to understand what's going on, and I think there was some commitment on the applicant's part to commit to doing those studies or, working with the town or the city with a, kind of a fair share contribution there.
And you're referring to the area that is.
Can you draw that line?
Planned south on that?
No, it's, someone brought up this one.
There it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think as you talk about the west side of Hanover Street on the other side of the school, that's another one where, kind of where we're taking our walk as we come down the entrance and crossing Old Etna. That section there, again, that's wetlands there. And I'm not sure what the benefit of wetlands or clearing trees or taking away any screening from the residents on the west side of the street would get you when you have a duplicate walkway on the other side. So I think that's why we're focusing on the crossing and the potential to, provide some additional studies or surveys on the Hanover extension.
Now, the crossing is the green line.
That's the green, yeah, thank you for making that a little brighter.
All right.
And I think, there were comments about that, I think there were fitting comments about, operationally, how does this work with, crossing guards and things like that. But I think the important part is that there will be, people have to cross this intersection now regardless of the project, and this would be a benefit to get some defined crossing there. And again, working with the city with the right-of-way there and getting folks across. And it's another one we could, whether it's, advanced warning signs and things like that. We've worked with the RRFBs up on Mount Support for the flashing. Those are all things that we can work with the city. But the way we're looking at this is that we're committed to doing this, but it's within the city right away. We want to make sure that it's something that's fitting with the city's designs and kind of long-term outlook for that intersection.
So again, the project is presently committed to enacting the green line to create the
Yes.
crosswalk, ultimately crossing
Crossing Hanover Street and then crossing Old Etna.
Okay, thank you.
And there's no sidewalk on the north, I keep saying the north, but Plan North. So from the driveway down, we'd have to create a sidewalk. So we're going to go from the right-of-way on the north side down to basically where we do that crossing, because that's basically where the wetlands start. And then, there's a little bit on the north side, so if there's a sidewalk that, in the future, that would be able to tie into that.
Would some kind of plans for that crossing and sidewalk be included in the paperwork that gets logged in the?
We could make that a condition of approval.
Okay.
And then-
I mean, we've done it for Mount Support, for the
Yeah.
number of crossings, and it was either like to the approval of the engineer
No.
or staff.
Mr. Chair, just so the board's aware, we do have a representative from the Pedestrian Bicyclist Advisory Committee here tonight. It's,
Oh, great.
sorry, it's
Sean Dietrich.
Sean Dietrich.
Welcome, Sean. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, there's reference in some of the paperwork to an island in
Yeah,
that triangle, and I just can't tell where the island,
Yeah, can you zoom
what is
in?
meant by that.
yeah, it's really hard. So basically, can you just outline that, Tom, do you mind? There's an existing island out there, so you'd want to have the crosswalk come and then have a little refuge there to come across, just so you're not crossing two streets at one time.
Okay.
Okay.
And this is why I'd like to see it in the plan set, because then we'd have detailed
Yeah.
scale.
I guess I could put it in as a
He's gonna-
draft. It's just, there's some right-of-way, potential coordination with the owner
Yeah.
that the city would have to do, because that right-of-way goes right to that corner for the property of the, is it the
Yeah.
garage?
Yeah.
Just be aware, just to address Mr. Fort Burley's comment, you can craft conditions precedent whereby an applicant can come back to the board with final designs related to any one or more of your conditions. So just be aware that that's
Thank you.
a possibility. Sorry.
I don't recall there being a fulsome presentation of the walkability and the way that that's being handled. I don't think I missed it, but maybe I did.
Well, yeah, if you zoom out, Tom, so this plan was
there
included in the
any
plan
more-
set, and I thought we walked through it, but
Yeah,
basically, there's the full sidewalk on the east side at the Hanover Street. That goes down to Old Etna, and we pulled this plan together too to show
I mean,
some.
improvements that you would be adding above and beyond existing conditions.
Yeah, and those are all existing there.
Okay,
And then our crossing of Hanover Street is a new one. And our crossing at Old Etna in Hanover,
okay,
that extension that goes from there, the Old Etna crossing up to the property line. And then that walkway then goes up, and we've showed parking for trailhead parking, but that's also accessible through a walkway to come up that parking lot.
specific to the crosswalks, is it purely paint on the street, or are there flashing lights or any other forms of alerting?
Signage.
There'll be signage, those are things too that we'll work on. Like I said, on Mount Support, we did the flashing signage for push buttons. The Hanover Evans Street one now is, we have that stop control that's in there that will help with the crossings there. But anything that we do for crossings will include the MUTCD standards for advanced warning for signage, like crossing ahead.
What is the stop control that you just mentioned?
The stop signs?
No, just stop
Stop
signs.
signs. No lights, no.
And I mean, I'd be especially concerned with, I know it's really fancy, but lights at night. There was a fatality at that intersection maybe 5 years ago. And it was just after dusk, around this time of year, November, I believe, in a left turn. And it wasn't, the person just wasn't seen probably. It wasn't a child,
Right.
fortunately, but. So I think that's something that's
Yeah, and
already a problem. I mean, the existing lighting there, it would be great to have.
Yeah, and we're adding lights to the driveway entrances in that area.
I mean, I'm thinking a la Hanover, the lights that are focused right on the crosswalk, right where the
Yeah.
people are walking. So you're not talking like,
Anybody crossing either side of
Right, and I
Hanover
think,
Street or Evans
Brian,
would have a
you
light.
can remind me, I think when we did the Mount Sport ones, we have the reflective lights on a post that also have a light that directs, that's like, and again, we want to make sure we're not impacting
abutters.
the abutters, but it also, they were shielded facing the roadway and covering the crosswalk.
Yeah, the ones I've seen are quite well shielded
Yeah.
and directed.
Yeah, so I think that's, yeah, that makes sense for those
Okay.
crossing. That's something that we could provide the details.
In a kind of related question, if we look at the south end of Hanover Street, there is that pedestrian bridge. And I'm wondering if the applicant has any interest in perhaps some aesthetic changes between the development Southern Access Road and the pedestrian bridge, possibly including lighting, landscaping, signage that would indicate to the residents of this new development how easy it is to get to downtown and
Like
that kind of,
some wayfinding.
Yes.
some kind of wayfinding, maybe.
Promotional wayfinding.
If you look.
Maybe
it
something to
would
make
look
it
like,
look
don't go this
shinier.
way. If you look down that street now and didn't know what was there.
It's not welcoming.
Yeah.
It is not.
You know, it wouldn't have to be a whole lot to make it more welcoming, but maybe some
And you
lights
are
and
limited.
signs.
You go-
Feeling some welcoming, signs there. I think that makes sense. I mean, it's gonna make sense for the residents anyway, and just to keep, kind of like how you would do, you'd want to manage traffic, we want to manage the pedestrian.
Awesome.
Do we know who owns that piece of property that immediately abuts that bridge?
On the south side,
Find out.
East Sakota.
On the,
Comcast
east
is
On
on
the east side, it's is
Yeah,
it
the
the
wet-
car dealership? Sakati, just on all the way to there, I think. It's wetlands, like,
It's
you
wet-
you go off that edge, it's immediately
It is
down.
wetlands to the
Yeah,
road.
Yeah.
Okay, does that require any involvement of those parties with respect to alterations of their property?
Certainly would if you did.
I made a side comment, and I missed like the critical piece of the
Sure,
conversation.
we're
What,
talking about
Wayfinds.
sprucing up the sort of landscaping
Yeah.
and other means of actually dressing up the entryway to the pedestrian bridge.
Yep.
Making it more welcoming. We're looking to the applicant to provide us some support for that, however, he doesn't own the land.
right. We can, as long as, well, if it's.
Well, if there's signage in the right of way.
Exactly.
Yeah, how far does the right-of-way extend off?
It's not on the GIS, so I don't know.
Okay,
Yeah, we can figure it out.
okay.
If the GIS is to be believed, there is no right-of-way, so.
Yeah, that's right. That stuff you never know. It has to get surveyed.
Yeah, we could assume, if it's a 50-foot wide right of way or something. But it's pretty tight there, I think. I'm gonna guess the back of sidewalk is pretty close to where the right of way.
And, and you know that strip on the plan north or the west side is the sophomore lot? Does anyone else know what I'm talking about?
No.
The sophomore lot? That's where the sophomores park in the high school. There's 20 cars there. That's what they call it.
sophomore.
So during school, when the high school is in session, it's parked up full. And actually, in the beginning of the year, not so much, but as people's birthdays turn, they can drive to school, it gets full. By the end of the year, it's full. That's how things are and how they've been for a long time. I don't know if that affects any of our plans for that stretch.
You can see it on the aerial. Yeah, that's the sophomore lot
Yeah,
photo.
there it goes.
Okay.
I can almost guess the time of year from the trees, but also from how many cars are parked there.
Oh, in front of Building 1?
Yeah, it will be in front of Building 1.
Yeah, from the old Comcast entrance to, basically to our entrance.
I have nothing more on walkability. Does anyone else have?
Yeah, I just want to come back to that island for a second. So this is a straight shot just directly across the road at the southern entrance, right?
Yeah.
But if I'm not mistaken, what was just drawn in at the northern, that's a two-part
Yeah.
crossing, is it not?
It is
Yeah.
because of the limitation of the wetlands as we have to cross there.
Yeah, makes it, a more complicated crossing. Would you, agree? It's nice to have the island there, so people, if they can't make it all the way across, because it is a greater
Yeah,
distance there.
I'm wondering if that's the natural crossing of that road.
That's what I'm asking.
The other problem you're going to run into is as you come down Old Retina Road to go onto Hanover Street, you pull very far forward because if you're like me, you're not so flexible. And you're looking over your right shoulder because you have that angled intersection. So wherever you paint the crosswalk, stop bar, it may be disregarded. I mean, I'd look at what people are actually doing. I'm not sure how to solve that
So-
here. But if you draw it like it's drawn there.
Let's say, I would say, if you continue it down when you get past the old Etna and maybe where the T is in the Hanover Street, having a crossing over there, is that what you're thinking? I guess we'd have to look at the
No,
feasibility.
right now, I'm talking about if you're going down Old Etna Road from the bottom right-hand of our image.
Yeah,
up to
well, I'm
the
saying that
center.
would be a more optimal position. is
It
if you
would,
have it down there.
I mean, and yes, you would have to fill in wetlands, it would,
But hopefully that's, with more advanced warning signage and things like that for the crossing, and actually having something defined.
I think you could also solve a lot of what you're talking about by moving the crossing over Old Etna closer towards, down towards the O, Plan Southeast here,
Yeah.
so that cars have to interact.
Yeah, I think that's a
interact.
pretty wide open
Yeah.
driveway for that existing owner.
Yeah,
it is a
Very
challenge.
it's challenging, yeah.
Another element that's probably not relevant is there is an open DES, it's a remedial site.
On
at
that side,
the
yeah.
dealership, yeah, okay, you're aware of that, so when you start digging, just know where the storage tanks used to be.
We prefer
and where
not to
the
dig at all, so.
Yeah, well, fair.
Anything more on walkability before we move on?
Would traffic patterns be
Traffic
included?
is next.
Okay.
Also, no, I've got one more thing on
About walkability?
Yeah, with the idea of the crossing guards. So I think as far as the schools go, use is already, there is a crossing guard presently at one of the intersections. There is not one, I believe, someone correct me if I'm wrong about this, at the northern one. There are students who cross that way, not as many as cross at the southern. I think with the increase in traffic, it's gonna become more difficult for them to do so. I have kids who go to Hanover Street School and have for many years, and they walk on their own, when they're able to. But I would not let them if they had to cross that without the traffic guard there. And there is a crossing guard at the other intersection. So, and it's been a problem for a number of years. It's a necessity now, and I think it's likely to become a necessity at both intersections, have a crossing guard. And I wonder about putting this as a condition of approval. I don't know how to negotiate the details of this, like paying for a crossing guard in perpetuity. Well, not exactly. I mean, one's already there, but
I mean, the crossing guards, to my understanding, are kind of hired by the schools.
I thought so, but are they hired by the city? Because there's like an ad on the city website for crossing guard.
I thought they were, but I didn't.
There's a position
Never looked
opening.
into
I just ran into that by chance. But right now, there's an open position. I had assumed it was the school district also,
Yeah.
because it's been covered in a pinch by the police and also by the school principal.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'll go back to the, kind of the layout of the driveway entrances and our distribution is that the intent would be, you know, where we're showing that crossing, that folks are coming out and taking lefts, not there, can you go to the north one? That they'd be coming out and heading left, because anybody that is heading down Evans on the other side would be coming out the southern entrance and going straight across. So these are laid out to try to minimize the traffic from the site in between those two driveway entrances.
Yeah, it's gonna create, for most of those kids, crossing that driveway may be carrying as much traffic or more than the public roads in the morning rush hour, between 7 and 8.
And it's not necessarily the case that they're going to turn left because the intersection, the other direction is sort of congested. So if I'm in a hurry and I'm trying to get to work, I might just decide to head down Hanover Street, then take a left-hand turn onto Evans to get out quicker and avoid Heater Road or,
Right, yeah, it's not completely eliminating it, I'm just talking about
Yeah, no, it
the
won't be,
design to minimize.
it won't be all the traffic, you know, but not everyone will work at the hospital, and some will come out the north entrance and
Yeah,
head toward I-89.
Can we double back to the lights,
yeah.
just by virtue of the concern that's been raised? These lights flash, and the command is to stop on flash? Is that the way these lights work?
Like the ones in front of the middle school, yeah.
The
Like-
push button.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you push a button, the lights light up, there's a sign that says stop on flash.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Is it okay to ask a question about the parking places just inside the north entrance there and walkability? Because that is, as advertised, a place where people could leave their cars to go up to the trails further up.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes? So those parking spots are available to the public,
yes.
all 6 of them,
That's all, yeah, those all been added for trailhead parking.
okay?
I have a quick question about the trailhead, actually. Can I jump in on that? Is that?
Very quickly, sure.
I guess that's.
I noticed that,
Added to walkability.
I noticed the parking.
Walkability.
Yeah, walkability, there you go. Trails are walkable. I noticed that on Plat C 2.3, there's a trail listed as approximate Upper Valley Bike Association Trail Connection. Does that trail connection stop at the end of the property?
No, it's already up, I think there's one up there that's in the GIS, so we wanted to add the extension to show how you could connect to it.
So it does connect all the way
It's up
to the
there,
actual,
yeah.
because there's a trail network up there that seems like it's on the other side of
It
a
is.
very
So we-
large expanse.
So we took that to show, here's how you get, I mean, assuming people are using a similar, oh yeah, this might have it out there.
Is the applicant proposing to construct that trail extension? You know, clear it and make it walkable?
It's, yeah, I mean, it's way, you can see where it is, it's, that yellow is
Yeah, so-
where it is.
So is the applicant suggesting that they're going to commit to clearing a trail not only up to their property line, but to work with, I believe it's Dartmouth that owns that property, to clear a connecting trail all the way up to the yellow line?
That's, hasn't been anything that we've discussed.
Would that be something you'd entertain? Because it'd be a lot more connecting to the trails if it actually connected to the trails, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, can,
I could
Yeah, if you could.
jump in on that. So
Yeah.
we were-
If you wanted to come and actually talk into a mic, just so poor Paula can,
Yeah, so with regard to the
sorry,
trail.
you'll need to say your name as well.
Yeah,
Just-
my name is Sean Dietrich. I'm a member in good standing of the Pedestrian and Bicyclist Advisory Committee. So in the letter from the applicant responding to our committee's questions and comments, they had stated that 6 parking spaces have been added at the southern driveway to allow for public access to these trail networks. A connector trail will be provided to existing trail network. This has been clarified on the updated site plans.
Okay,
Yeah, so we have,
So-
I guess, no commitment beyond the property line, but.
okay. But do you know, do the trails, are they some distance from the property line?
They're not very far up. no.
Okay, okay.
It's the northern
Northern
line,
entrance,
isn't
right?
that the southern?
Northern entrance? Did you say?
It's the northern.
Northern entrance,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Okay,
Good.
yep.
Traffic.
There's one trail specifically that sort of loops down, makes a sort of an arc towards the development proposed site.
And gets pretty close to the edge of the property line?
From what I've seen, yeah, it looks pretty
Do
close.
you, do you work with the Upper Valley, the bike?
Not directly.
Because I know when, on some of the other properties, they've asked for some access to work on the trail, so that's something we could reach out to them as well.
That would be great if you, I would,
Yeah.
I
I
really.
think they're actually constructing the trail at the
Oh, okay.
343 Mount Support.
Oh, okay, cool.
Good.
Yes.
Thank you. Eric, traffic.
On Table 7, capacity analysis showing the 2025 no build and the 2025 build. This is at the intersection of Hanover Street and Evans Drive. I'm just trying to understand this. Evans Drive westbound approach is currently a level of service E, and with the build, it'll be a level of service F. And then the south side driveway eastbound approach, which I believe is the south exiting, which we just assume everybody's going to drive straight out of the development and onto Evans Drive without any complications. I don't understand why that level of service is an F if it's just as simple as driving straight through.
All right, we got Jason Plord joining us on the phone. Jason?
Can I just make a request, if possible, if the applicant can zoom in on the intersection that's being discussed and in any way kind of help with, just as you were doing with the drawing in the intersections or drawing in the crosswalks, if you could draw the movement that we're referring to, that I think that would be very helpful, at least for me.
Amen.
So very quickly, what we're doing is the difference between this intersection you see up on the screen of Hanover Street and Evans Drive, we are proposing a fourth leg to the intersection. Whereas over at Old Etna and Hanover Street, that's just a three-legged intersection. So when you're introducing an additional leg to an intersection, you're introducing additional vehicles that would be considered conflicting movements. And that affects the operations of an intersection.
Correct, but, so if this says south side driveway eastbound approach, so isn't that the people exiting from the new development?
Correct.
Okay, so why, it seems like it's just simple, you're going straight forward, I think that's what we're all assuming. Why is it a level of service F?
When you have a single lane approach, you have all the vehicles in one lane. So it doesn't matter if people are turning left, going through, or going right. If that first car, let's say, is going to turn left, even though the majority of people are going to go through, and we're not expecting anybody that's going to be turning right, that if that ends up being the situation, that any second vehicle, third vehicle, anybody else trying to get out is going to be behind that first vehicle trying to turn left out of the driveway.
Okay, and does the traffic study take into effect that there's now a crosswalk that people are going to have to deal with for everybody turning right off of Evans onto Hanover? Because the Hanover, okay,
Right. Right. So absolutely, and that's why we wanted to introduce the always stop at this intersection, because what it does is that it forces the motorists to be able to stop, so that when you have that crosswalk going across Hanover Street, every first motor vehicle on all four approaches would be stopped and be able to see the pedestrians trying to cross Hanover Street, and then also Evans Drive.
Is there any way that if you widen the throat of either intersection, it could alleviate that? I mean, just have either a right turn lane on Evans or a merge lane on the other side that allows people, if you had a dedicated left turn lane coming out of the development in a straight lane, not for a whole lot of distance, going straight onto Evans, wouldn't that alleviate the problem of the left-hand turning car messing everybody up behind them?
Potentially, and I might get a little engineering, so using too much engineering legalese here. So please slow me down if I kind of go off the rails a little bit. Ultimately, what we want to do is we want to make sure that the intersection is going to be aligned properly. And as during the last presentation that I had given on traffic, that's why we couldn't make it a four-way intersection over at Old Etna and Hanover Street. Here, if we are going to provide let's say a left turn lane coming out of our site driveway, we want to make sure that the through movements are going to be aligning with the receiving lane on Evans Drive. So that would mean that we would have to have our left turn lane, and anybody coming off of Evans Drive has to go straight through into our site. So we can't have them going into the left turn lane if we had a left turn lane coming out of our driveway. So what we would have to do is we would have to shift our driveway over to the left on the screen. And then we would have to do widening all along Evans Drive on the left side of the screen. And that way we would be able to have the through movements from Evans Drive going into the site driveway, and we would be able to have the through movements coming out of our site driveway onto Evans Drive. And that would be a lot of widening on the other side of the road, and I believe that there's some sensitivity areas over on that corner. As well as you have the school property over on the right side of Evans Drive on the screen, so that same kind of thought process that you want to have the through movements from Evans Drive going into the driveway. So the widening, if we were going to widen Evans Drive so that it was, let's say, a shared left through lane and an exclusive right turn lane, those rights would actually have to be on the school property or on getting closer to the school on the right side of the roadway.
Yes, and there is room to do that. I mean, I understand the school would have to seed it, but I'm just, we're designing, this is all city, we don't have the New Hampshire DOT involved. So might it be something worth considering just to prevent the problem that we believe is going to be there? And I'm sorry, one more time though, did the study take into effect the interference of the potential crosswalk there on the level of service?
It took it into consideration as far as the evaluations of the always stop. It did take it into consideration as far as considering the pedestrian movements, and they reflected on the existing traffic volume networks that are in the traffic study. Based on the New Hampshire DOT criteria, because this project was being prepared for one traffic study that would be reviewed and accepted by New Hampshire DOT as well as the city and the Upper Valley Lake Sunapee Regional Planning Commission, that the methodology that is based on New Hampshire DOT does not take into consideration pedestrian crossings. We did take the pedestrian crossings into consideration for different evaluations, but not for the intersection operations, for delays and levels of service.
So then these reports, the result might end up being worse than what the reports indicate.
Or I also identified within the traffic study that we could be overestimating even the existing traffic volumes based on the methodologies that we're required to follow for land development projects in New Hampshire. And that would be a big difference between what traffic volumes New Hampshire DOT is using within the Route 120 corridor study versus what we're showing. Their traffic volumes are likely lower than ours because they didn't have to do peak month conditions or adjust for the pandemic, and they can use a different historical growth rate if they choose to do so, but we're required to use no less than 1% compounded annually. So our traffic volumes are most likely higher than what New Hampshire DOT would see. So our evaluations, I feel comfortable saying that the traffic volumes that we have here may not be seen in the future. I'm not saying our site trips. I'm saying the other traffic volumes along Hanover Street and Evans Drive.
Could I ask,
Can someone refresh my memory? When you go straight out of the new development onto Evans Drive to Route 120, can you turn left from Evans onto 120?
Right now, yes.
You
Currently.
You can today, but New Hampshire DOT has plans that they're going to restrict that left turn movement from Evans onto 120.
So then the assumption that the majority of traffic is going to go straight onto Evans isn't true. They're going to go on to Hanover and then turn right on Old Etna to get over to 120 where they can go up to Dartmouth or Hanover from 120.
Correct, and our traffic study does take that into consideration. We had to do different future traffic volume operations. We had to look at our opening year conditions and then our opening year plus 10. And under the opening year plus 10, that is when New Hampshire DOT asked us to include their alternative that they were considering at that time within our future traffic volume conditions. So we did take that into consideration. And on our traffic volume networks, we show left turns coming out of this driveway as well as coming straight across onto Evans Drive.
What if you just make it a no left turn allowed and force everybody who wants to turn left to take the north exit?
They certainly could do that. I think that this is, by placing this intersection under an all-way stop, I think that that's a big safety improvement for this intersection.
Oh, I agree
And
with that.
introducing the crosswalk, I think that's a win, and that was something that we had talked about early on in the process for the development program, was that the city was actually considering placing this intersection under all-way stop.
Can I,
And so,
Jason, can I interrupt you real quick? Tim, is
Sure.
Weston and Sampson on the line?
Yes, they are.
Can we just get, it'd be
Yeah,
nice just to
absolutely.
get some,
Yeah,
because
you
we're talking.
feel free.
Yeah, so just, again, I appreciate the extra detail. Just want to make sure Jason's following the protocol. It was reviewed. I just wanted to, make sure that we're not, venturing too far off from what Weston Sampson has reviewed and has already provided input on. So I don't know who's on the.
Yeah.
Hi.
Doug,
I'll introduce myself. I'm Doug Osler. I work for Weston and Sampson. We are contracted with the planning board to provide our review and our recommendations regarding this development, as well as help assist interpreting information that you guys may be better informed when making decisions for that. I did hear some discussion about this always stop and versus having additional lanes. In our opinion, when we were reviewing this particular location, we agreed with the improvement for an always stop, particularly for pedestrians crossing the road from school-age pedestrians. If there's any biking over that overpass getting to school, it just creates a better condition for the crossing for the pedestrians. And in the case that there is poor level of service, which points to delays on the driveway approach, initially they have to wait for gaps in Hanover Street traffic. There's a considerable amount of southbound left turns turning onto from Hanover Street to Evans Drive. So anybody going out of the driveway has to wait in a gap for that. And providing an always stop changes it from everybody has to wait for Hanover Street traffic to a somewhat alternating approach. And the delays that we see in the projected case that is provided within the traffic study provides a reasonable operation. I think was Evans Drive was projected to be a level of service C in that approach, and both Hanover Street and the proposed driveway would be projected at a level of service A, if I'm correct. You referred to table 7. If you go further down to, it would be PDF page 67, that would be table 9 is where it displays the results of the level service capacity analysis with the always stop condition for your review.
Okay, I'm sorry,
So
I
in
misinterpreted the
summary-
data.
No, with the projected, in the study, they do the step of this is what would happen if we don't have any further improvements, and then they evaluate that, and then they made that recommendation for the always stop. So the always stop condition is in the later table. If that, if it wasn't always stop and it was still operating at level service F, we would have more concern definitely about that. But it does improve conditions regarding that significantly.
Good.
I apologize if I was talking fast. I
No,
can
no, I don't.
repeat anything if needed.
The thought I had before Doug joined the conversation was that a four-way stop with a single lane at each option point would be a more predictable experience for the pedestrian, which is, I think, what you, in as much as said. So unless we're planning to go multiple lanes and have it governed by an actual traffic light, which I don't think is
Wouldn't
in,
be able to-
which is not in the plan.
Yeah, it wouldn't meet any of the triggers anyway.
Right. We may have the best option that we can, that best safeguards the safety of pedestrians at the crosswalk. Other traffic questions? I have a couple myself, but I don't want to step on others' toes. With respect to a pending study on Route 120 and its potential to have some effect, good, bad, or otherwise, on what's happening in the development, is there precedent for the approval that would be given to have as some form of caveat the fact that this study is outstanding and that you might be re-invited back to the design?
Well, I think, Jason, we have a scenario without the 120 improvements, right?
Correct. So our opening year conditions, the 2025 conditions, do not incorporate the Route 120 improvements along the corridor. The 2035 conditions do include the Route 120 improvements. And just so that I get this on the record as well, that the traffic study has been submitted to Chris Turgeon at the New Hampshire DOT district office, so that the New Hampshire DOT does have a copy of our traffic study.
Right. I think maybe, Andrew, your question is, if in 2035 that project gets pulled, what's our evaluation, our recommendations and mitigation?
What is
look
the
like?
future proofing for the city with respect to the plans that you're pitching for this development? And do they reasonably cover the present conditions as well as the 120 happening or not happening conditions?
I hope for all of you that the 120 improvements.
It's got to happen.
It's got to happen, right?
Can I ask a follow-up question? That's been something I've been wondering about, given pending budget cuts at the state level. In all probability, it's possible that the Route 120 project will continue to be delayed. The 10-year DOT plan oftentimes is more of a 25-year plan than it is a 10-year plan. And so what if the 120 improvements are not made? How does that impact the build scenario? Has that analysis been done?
Well, I'm wondering too, is there a situation, and Jason, maybe stop me if I'm going down a wrong road here, but, is there a post-occupancy, because then we're still basing everything on these assumptions. Is there something where we revisit post-occupancy? In that point, we know what the deal is with.
We can talk about that, yeah. That's been done with some other developments.
Jason, was that a good or bad transportation engineer idea?
Well, I think that, globally for the community, I think that's a great idea. I think that it's tough to be able to hold a developer, if a state project doesn't move forward in 10 years, how long does everything kind of work out? The whole thing was that the development itself under our 2025 conditions The only impact that we're showing is at the Evans Drive, Hanover Street, Southern Site Driveway intersection. We're not showing an impact that needs to be mitigated in any of the other intersections. That being said, there are problems along Route 120. I'm not trying to avoid that at all. There are problems along Route 120. And those problems are going to exist whether we're here or not. And as far as any improvements, DOT knows that that's an issue. And they've been trying to come up with these plans. I have no idea as far as timing and funding and when they're actually going to move that forward. But a lot of the discussions that we had with DOT about this project had been about them wanting to make sure that they were accounting for any traffic from our site that would be accessing the Route 120 corridor. Also, they made a note during the scoping meeting that with the Route 120 improvements in place, they're expecting traffic to divert from Mount Support Road and Hanover Street and all of the local roadways that people are avoiding Route 120 to use. And, you know, whether they're going up to Dartmouth Hitchcock and coming down and then going over to 120, one of the intents of the 120 project is to be able to get people back where they belong. Whether that's going to happen or not, we don't know. And so what we had said and agreed to was that we would not account for any diversion off of the local streets onto Route 120 as part of our traffic study. Is that a reality? New Hampshire DOT believes that it is, that people will get off of these roadways, so there might be less traffic on the roadways. However, we didn't take that into consideration. We did not subtract any traffic volumes along the local roadways and add them to 120.
Okay.
Okay. Happy you asked.
I have a note to self, and I'm trying to deconstruct it. Resolution of board interest in higher than required commitments for traffic control, that is signals over four-way stop. Actually, I think we've covered that. I also have a note about the desirability, perhaps at some intersections, of maintaining the current traffic performance metrics, despite the fact that in some of the studies that we've presented that they're going down a letter or two, and that's perfectly acceptable. Is there any interest on the part of the developer to maintain, by virtue of some set of interventions that are possible, the performance, the traffic performance that the residents currently experience in these areas?
Jason, have you seen, is there something you can relate to for other projects you've worked on?
Yeah, I think one of the big things that I want to make sure of is that, you know, we know that there are a lot of pedestrians out here, and we're trying to accommodate them. You know, Dave went through the different crossings that we're talking about, the different connections through the rear of the site. Another thing, too, is that we did not take any kind of reductions in vehicle trips and say that people are going to walk or they're going to use advanced transit. We said these are all vehicle trips that are entering and exiting our site. So, you know, as far as this type of a development, I think it's great as far as the location, because we have
Yeah, but
two different driveways.
Sorry, Jason, we're
Yeah.
talking about follow-on of maintaining.
But what we're talking about is, are there relatively straightforward things that can be done to improve the performance at these intersections to not degrade the rating, the performance rating at each intersection? Because we currently have a population that is, quite frankly, challenged by the traffic that exists currently.
Right, and that's where I was trying to go with this, is that if we did a monitoring study in the future, that it ended up showing that we're actually generating less traffic because people are using advanced transit, because people are walking or biking, that these levels of service degradations, which, as far as in the traffic engineering world, something going from an A to a B is not bad. Anything that's going from an A to an E or an F, okay, you know, that's going to get your attention. But if we did a monitoring study and found out that the traffic volume is going to be less in and out of the driveways, that means that we're having less of an impact at those intersections than what we've documented within the traffic study.
What I think I'm hearing is the data and people's behaviors may change, and that those may be mitigating factors for the downgrading having the negative effect that I'm perceiving, but that there is not an interest on the developer's part or on the folks that are doing the traffic studies to proactively put in place some sort of intervention in order to maintain the actual traffic experience, irrespective of whether people's behaviors change. And maybe that's too much of an ask.
Right, because I think we're assuming worst case for the
Okay,
design.
all right. I will stop talking about that.
Well, Mr. Chair, I do have a question for you, if you don't mind.
Yes, please.
Is there a certain intersection that you are concerned about, and you have an idea of what kind of an improvement could be implemented?
I have no direct experiences of any of the traffic in this area, so I really can't comment on that.
Okay. I
But
didn't mean to put
but-
you on the spot or anything like that. I
but
was
I-
actually trying to have a conversation. So.
No, I appreciate that, and I regret that we don't have more folks in the audience that had particular opinions about that on our occasion to get the traffic study presented to us on the first occasion. Moving on, unless somebody else has traffic.
We have no more.
Well, I could potentially, for the Pedestrian and Bicyclist Advisory Committee, provide comments regarding this and the letter that was furnished to us about our comments, if there was time.
There may not be time. Could we loop back with you?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. The next item on my agenda is historic resources. Do
Right.
others have
Yeah,
things to
I-
pursue
I-
on that?
I also do have a
Would
thing
you,
on that.
would you like to lead off?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to come out and say it. I don't think an overlook is enough for the kilns. I think it's really in the spirit of the PURDs that historic resources be made accessible to the people of the city. And I think I would really like to know whether there's an appetite for making a ground level access of some kind to pedestrians to at least walk around the exterior of the kilns. And also for assuring that they remain upright in perpetuity.
Yeah.
And, you know, I love signage, and I love looking.
And I'm gonna say, like, I think the overlook and things like that had nothing to do with excluding.
Mhm.
It's, you know, if you go out there and see them now, I think even our archaeologists said, like, I wouldn't go in them.
No, yeah.
So, and there's a liability piece where this is their property.
And even if there was like, if it was necessary to put like a fence around them at 5 feet to say, don't go actually inside. But like, one would think that also some sort of commitment to, you know, vegetation maintenance around them to prevent further
Right.
degradation would also make it more accessible to people who want to get up close and personal with the history of the city.
Yeah.
So if something like that
Yeah,
could
and again, I
be
think I'm.
a condition of approval. I
Yeah,
would-
and I'd like to just hear from the applicant
yeah, of
too,
course,
because it's
of course,
tough
of
saying,
course.
like, yeah, we want everyone to come on our property and
Right, of course.
liability and things like, there's a lot of pieces, but I understand it's also, you know, there's a reason we designed, you know, this project, you know,
Yeah, exactly.
around the kilns, right?
Yeah, exactly.
To that point, though, it might be set up in such of a way that it would be a docent-led experience, and that perhaps someone from the city might be involved in that, thus relieving the developer of the responsibility of having a, so to speak, open site, but rather having an access-controlled site where you have a proper resource to help you understand what it is that you're looking at, and perhaps that relieves some of the burden of liability.
That's a fair point.
Good, do you have any thumbs up?
So
those
a
noting at home, yeah.
partnership betwixt the city
think that's a
and the
great
developer
idea.
with respect to access versus upkeep.
Yeah, I mean, you have schools right across the street, right?
It's a
Yeah.
gem, yeah, it's a.
And there is, and the good thing is that there is access, you know, on the lower, from the Comcast side. There's nothing restricting, I mean, that's how we walked, right, when we did the site walk.
That's another question that I have, and that is how do you deal with the improvised walk-ups to those sites? You probably have to have a plan for that as well.
Yeah,
Chair, this is Kathy. I have some concerns along that line too, because I don't know if we need a condition that really just basically spells out that these historic resources will not be destroyed. Obviously, we want them to at least be preserved and at some point in time maintained to enhance their accessibility to not only residents of that community, but the public. But I wanted to make sure that there was a condition in there that they not be destroyed.
And more
Because
than not
just
destroyed, yeah.
Talking about improving them is one thing, but what if all of a sudden, 5 years from now, they're gone, there's nothing to improve?
You want to come up, Gil?
Yeah, as you may have noticed, we've had a bit of an issue of demolition by neglect in this city.
Understood.
Of our historic resources, and we're a little
You know,
sensitive
like,
about it.
We can definitely talk about two of them, which are, I think, in better states.
Yeah.
One of them is pretty much falling down already, but we are talking about clearing around it. There's trees growing on top of it. We are going to get an engineer to look at it to see how we can make it sound so that it doesn't fall over. But at a minimum, definitely try to maintain what's currently there on the left side.
Yeah, the
If you
two.
want to zoom in.
Yeah, in fact, on the plans, you show 2 kilns and one like,
In dotted line.
yeah, ruins of a kiln or whatever it says on
Spare
there.
parts.
Yeah, so those two, we are going to take every precaution available to make sure that they're preserved and cared for.
That's great. And you'd be okay with a condition of approval about maintenance?
Absolutely, yes.
That's so good. Thank
So
you.
there's kind of a bronze, silver, and gold medal approach to this. Bronze would be that they just remain physically upright in perpetuity. Silver might be that persons can walk up to them in that state, and gold might be that they could walk into them in that state.
Walk-in might be a difficult thing to do just for liability purposes. We are looking at possibly putting glass doors so people can look inside but not enter them.
Okay.
Even just so we don't have people coming in at night and kids using it, for the wrong reason. So
Precisely, yeah.
we are going to do whatever we can so it's preserved, but we can't guarantee that people will be able to go inside of them.
Great. This sounds like
And
an op.
sometimes
Go ahead, Kathy.
motion sensor lighting can help with that as well.
We are looking at putting QR codes so people can go up and see the history, and there's a YouTube video that they can link right from the QR code. So we're going to try to do
Yeah.
whatever we can to,
Right. I think Quinn presented last time, and Gil are going to be at the meeting on Wednesday
on Wednesday, yes.
for the Heritage.
Oh, great, good.
So-
So it sounds like this is a productive area
Oh,
of
absolutely.
discussion
Yeah, I mean,
as far as putting together a,
It's really important.
excellent.
So it sounds like we're not talking about restoration, but something to prevent them from collapsing, because they will collapse probably within.
Yeah.
I mean, because the others have. And what I'm wondering is, I don't know much about masonry, but if you've got water coming through it continually, soil forming on top, it will
Yeah,
collapse.
right.
So, but I also feel from a historical point of view, you don't want to see a plastic cap on it either. Which is, so it's, a lot of this might get in weedy, hairy in the details when we come back with what your engineers say is needed to preserve it.
Yeah, so I'm thinking maybe in the condition of approval, we ask for a comprehensive plan for the maintenance and care.
I think the other factor to take into account is that these things are meant to be fired. That's how they stay alive. That's why those smokestacks have come down, because they're no longer in use as smokestacks, and the bricks have gotten punky, and that's what's happened in the kilns.
So maybe a lid
unless there's
over them might
commitment to
actually be-
kind of-
Yeah, it might be the only way to do it long-term. Otherwise, I mean, two have collapsed, right, or partially collapsed, so.
Correct.
The others would be following within a decade or two, I imagine.
Yeah, there are trees growing on top of it.
Yeah.
Which I think is a big
That will make it
reason
worse.
why.
Yeah.
So we are going to look at clearing the trees and trying to just bring back the existing brick and probably patching up any of the openings. There's openings there right now that have collapsed. So we'll look at whatever we can to restore at least the two, to preserve it as long as we possibly can.
Something you might want to think about, because it sounds like you've really thought about a lot of different aspects to it, is that these are buildings that are designed to collapse in the end anyway. They're short-term buildings, okay? And if you have one that is collapsed or partially collapsed, that's a very interesting thing to show right next to one that's still standing there. So when you have a row of three like that, okay, and it's the third one that has already collapsed, you can say, well, this is
coming.
This is the process of ruin making,
What it
as
is.
it were.
I don't know how that impacts the engineering, because we do have that overlook right next to it. So
From a
much
constructability standpoint.
yeah.
Well, it's already considerably lower than the other ones anyway, because it is partially collapsed. You're talking to somebody who looks at ruins all the time, that's all I do. So, and we're in a society that really values ruins. I mean, you think of the great buildings, they just repaired Notre Dame.
We were going to use the brick from the fallen one to try to put it into the buildings. So we have to kind of weigh if
Exactly.
we do want to use the bricks in the
Well, you got to-
lobbies, and we're going to try to reuse some of those bricks from that kiln.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. And you got two
And another
other,
resource, excuse me, go ahead, Jerry.
I was just going to say, you have two others that are off the plan there a little bit, that are available for pillaging in the time-old, fashion of reusing building materials like that. So, yeah, I think it's great.
We're a little bit beyond our hour, and I've got natural resources coming up. Does anybody have any topics in that area?
Does that include all open space? The whole PURD definition of open space?
I wasn't going there.
Okay.
not
So
yet.
I actually have a very pertinent question that I think needs to be asked today so that it can be addressed by.
Okay,
May I just make one comment about the kilns?
yes, please.
Another resource I think we still probably have in the area are some of the people that actually worked there. If there was research being done or work that needed to be done on the kilns, there may be still people alive and around who've done that at that site.
And which might be known to people on the Heritage Commission?
Well, in the movie,
Not,
in
right,
the film of this.
but as far as the developer being able to, or the developer's consultant being able to contact those folks, it would be through Heritage, correct?
Or through watching the film.
Probably.
Okay,
Be watching.
but not through the board. We don't have those contacts. Thank you, though, Kathy. There was a comment made earlier in the hearings about preventative maintenance for the inflow and outflow of the pond.
Right.
At the points of crossing. We would probably want to see it as a condition of approval, that there would be a maintenance plan for that. I know that the developer has been very responsive to the as-need calls from Dr. Kroger, or Croner.
Yeah, Dr. Croner. Yep.
But for this, we would, I think, want to see a condition of approval around a preventative
Right.
maintenance
And
program.
and I'll say too that as, this will have an AOT permit associated with
Yep.
it. And as part of the AOT permit, there's a required operation and maintenance inspection that's required. And
Okay.
so there'll be regular inspections of
Great.
outfalls and things like that.
Good.
There'll be records of.
I have a question as to whether what is or whether there is an access management plan, whether it's for recreation or for risk management for the pond's perimeter and the pond itself. In other words, what's the plan for the pond? And what interest does the planning board need to take around how that gets expressed physically on the site?
Yeah, Gil, I think right now we're saying we don't want people in the pond.
Correct, yeah. Dr. Croner
You might have to come up to the mic, sorry.
But irrespective of what your choice is.
Yeah.
What I'm curious about is seeing in the plan and in the narrative, just what that plan is for the position that you're taking.
So in the deed for the houses directly in front of the pond over on Hanover Street have access to the pond. So they use at their own risk at that point. We can't stop them from using it. We have to look at liability as far as use of the pond. We are going to look at what we can do if it's ice rink, ice skating rink, or fishing, but we have to check with our attorneys as far as liability.
Maybe this is a question for staff, whether the city needs to concern itself with whether the developer has put in place some sort of risk management around that body of water. And if not, then I can stop asking the question.
I don't have an immediate thought, it's something
Maybe we can take it offline?
we can discuss it.
Okay,
Thank you.
great, perfect, thank you. Anybody else have anything in natural resources?
Yep, I wanted to ask a little bit more about the pond.
Oh,
One of
great.
One of my favorites. I mean, There are 7 abandoned vehicles in one of those buildings on the property. There's a lot of garbage that has been dropped all over the place. And I'm curious to know if anybody has any idea if anything has been dropped into the pond.
I don't know, we did,
I mean,
we
people-
did a bathymetric survey of the pond to get elevations and things like that, and there wasn't really any anomalies in the depths we were seeing.
Can you, well, I haven't seen the bathymetric map of the pond. Is it available?
Hey, Tom, you on? How does that work?
I did one once, you just go around in a boat, do the soundings.
Yeah.
Serious, I did a
Yes.
larger body of water
Yeah.
than this
I don't know if
meteorological study.
We did it to get the average depths and everything. It's gonna be as part of our, and again, this is all gonna be part of our study for the flood that's gonna be going to the state. So we're doing building cross-sections of the,
Oh, you are?
yes.
Oh, terrific.
Do
Oh,
flooding
well, I'd love to,
maps.
yeah, I'd love to see those at some point.
We're talking about the depths of the pond, Tom.
And how much water the pond as a whole holds, because there's a lot of
It was only
concern.
12 to 13 feet deep, which was surprising.
Full of clay.
It's full of clay, yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say the bathymetric survey. So they haven't tied it into the existing conditions plan because it does make this kind of a little messy and hard to follow, even more so than the existing topography looks like. But as Dave alluded to, they will be submitting the bathymetric cross sections to the state as they analyze the hydraulic connection of these streams, the overall watershed, the pond, and then the outlet culvert to the south as it goes to the adjacent property. So that'll be part of a larger study that the state will look at. And that's how we will end up, the final size and design of these crossing culverts that the driveways had. That's how those will come about as the state weighs in on different things, whether it comes to, wildlife crossings within the culverts or, the sizing parameters that they'd like to see based on the input and output of the pond itself.
Yeah,
Kind
and
of as
it-
the low point in the area.
And anything we're submitting to the state, you guys get copies of.
Okay.
As well.
And I just have one, quick follow-up after that. As I understand from, I don't know, some site I found on the web, there's a lot of oil or deposits of, oil and grease and whatever in the soil down in the areas of the kilns and the buildings that are there. And I haven't seen any comment about the soils at all.
We had a phase one.
Yeah, we did a phase 1, environmental.
I think most of the hits on our site were really more related to monitoring the gas station
From Gillies Auto.
from Gillies Auto. I think DES has closed most of the instances that are on this site.
Gillies Auto is the one at the north end? Or
Yes.
Yeah, but I think okay.
Yeah, we have a phase one that's been done.
I think it had largely to do with the Brickyard area and not with that area up there. So whatever I saw on the web.
Okay. Well, we
So
can
I just
confirm.
wondered-
We had a phase one that's done that I think demonstrates that that those have been closed by the state. But we can confirm that.
Okay.
At this point, I'm just going to open it up. Is there a last call for other questions from the board to the applicant?
I did have one question that I thought might be, if there isn't an answer for it, we'll need it in order to close this, about the open space. And it specifically referring to the ownership of the open space. And I think I need Tim's input on this as well. It looks to me from the regulations that there needs to be a plan for the ownership of the area designated as open space. And it gives 5 options in the regulations, A through E, E being other ownership structure deemed by the city attorney to be legally adequate. What's the plan?
We would do a defined easement.
A defined easement, okay.
I think that's where and we'll finalize that. but-
So, and because that doesn't require new lot lines, then,
Correct. Will still be they would still own it, and an easement would be granted.
right,
as open
correct.
space.
So that means that the site plan has to show how the open space is going to be physically delineated and distinguished from other areas. And so that just I think that will need to go into the site plan.
Yeah, whether it's little signage or.
Is it signage, or is it little walls, or what do you want to do? But I just didn't see that on the plan, so I was trying to figure out, okay, well, what are we doing with that? Okay. Good to know, an easement and some kind of physical explanation on the site.
Yeah, I think we've done them in other areas where like every 50 or 100 feet, there's a,
Little thing saying, this is the open space. Okay,
enjoy.
whatever works.
I mean, they'll figure it out.
And the open space you're referring to is that which is within the parcel that is affected by the PURD, not the lot that is above it.
Correct. The open space as delineated in the PURD, section 501.1 F7.
Okay, and
Or whatever it is.
I believe this question has been asked previously, and that is with respect to the lot that you own above it, what are the intentions for its use into the future?
Well, yeah, at this point, we had, like, for all our PURD calculations and everything, we've was focused on this area. That zone up there is pretty restrictive in terms of development, I think,
And the grade as well.
in the
is-
grade. So I don't think there's anything at this point, but we are laying things out that, you know, if somewhere down the road, there's something that, you know, whether it's like cottage developments or solar or some, I don't know, something, we're not restricting anything up there, it's just not part of the plan, but anything that we cannot do, we've already used all the density, right, for something, it's not like we're gonna build phase 2 and, put another, there's not enough in the density calcs to put anything up there beyond.
And you've also, I think, used the most hospitable land for the development that you.
Yeah, we,
Design.
pretty much where we're at is where, you know, we design things, you know, we talked about what the earthwork would look like and the blasting and
Yeah.
how we design this to like stay in that area where we're just in an area fill. Once you get past where we're at, it just shoots up the.
So the answer with respect to the lot above is there are no present plans.
No present plans.
Nor is there any intent to take it off the table.
Correct.
Was the land part of a package deal? I mean, did you have to buy the RL3 to get everything else?
It's all part of the same law.
The same one? Okay, so,
We just use we basically just use the zone line as our PURD limit within the overall site.
Any other questions?
I have a fun one to end with if you like, but
I'll be the
it's
judge
a more
of that.
serious one.
I just wonder do you have a graphic that shows, that would run through buildings 2 and 3, that shows what the tops of those buildings are, how high they are relative to each other? Because the building 2, if I've got it
Yeah,
right.
they're 45 feet.
They're both 45 feet high, but are the bottoms at the same level? Because the,
At the front they are, in the parking lot, they're the same heights. But building 2, you can drive all the way around and go under. So there's an underground parking there. But the elevations for building 2 and 3,
At the
as
tops.
they mirror each other, are the same.
okay.
Tom, that's right. I think we might have run a cross-section, but not sure if that was part of our last presentation or not.
That just seems sort of odd that building 2 was in fact higher because of the garage,
It's, no, it's, the garage is buried.
but the garage is buried.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when you look at it, it's just two 4-story
I think there's a
residentials.
rendering that shows it.
Yeah, do you have that rendering?
Some elevations.
I told Tom I was gonna put him on the spot at one point.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, I see if we have a cross-section. I don't think this is the exact one for building 2 and building 3. This is more to show the relationship between the pond and the hill. Let me see if I can pull
What about
up
the
a
rendering?
that has.
Yeah, I think the rendering we
Yeah.
have an angle. I think we had one that shoots right down that area.
Thank
All
you.
right, just give me 1 second, but all right. Here we go.
Yeah, so that parking is underneath, and then there are 4 stories of residential. Or, one has, sorry,
There's-
I should clarify. The one on the left has a deck, and then 3 stories of residential on it. The one on the right has 4 stories of residential with the parking buried.
Right.
So one has three levels of, is there 4 levels from the parking lot level for each of them? One's just 3 residential, one's 4 residential, and one's on a deck, and one has a buried deck.
This looks like, if I'm hearing you correctly, it appears then that there are 3 buildings that have 4 rows of 4 sections of residential. and-
Yeah, the 2 in the back that we're asking for conditional use permit on, so those are 4 on top of a deck.
Yeah,
the one on the pond is 4, but the deck is buried, so we didn't need the conditional use.
Okay.
And then buildings 1 and 3 we couldn't go above 45 feet for those, so we didn't ask
Got
for
it, got it.
any
Okay.
relief.
An aesthetics question?
Sure.
The elevations now appear to show brick patterning. Is that likely to happen?
Correct, yes.
Okay. And will we get to see elevations of the townhouses?
Yeah, we're going to pull,
We'll provide them, yes.
yeah.
Okay. And lastly, about the townhouses, I believe I clarified this last time, but are you amenable to a change in, so that instead of having the townhouses built after
Oh, the
Phase
phase.
3D, after Phase 3A, so that we don't have to wait for whether or not people want to buy or rent single-bedroom units to build townhouses? It seems like the markets are very different, and it would.
Before we spend too much time on the phasing plan, I should probably coordinate with the applicant on
Okay.
that. They're-
Yeah, I'm going to say we're updating a phasing plan.
That's a beautiful segue into
Perfect.
prepping for our next time together. In my notes, I have in between meetings that the staff and the applicant would get together around clarification on what waivers are really still in play, likewise cleaning up some of the phasing
Yeah.
wonderments.
Those were the big ones. that we-
And likewise, the board and staff can do some crafting of conditions of approval, and staff can shop conditions of approval language to you gentlemen as well, so that when we arrive back here next, we have a good fighting chance of actually getting out the door with,
And we didn't get to talk about it, but I just want to highlight in the plans, because there wasn't a lot of substantive plan, changes to the plan, but we
Yep.
did, our landscape architect did put a lot of detail into the amenity spaces, and we tried to find, there's really no industry standards, it's kind of just like what's common in the area and what's, been done, but I think when you dig into this, you'll see that, there's been a lot of thought of, making these really nice usable spaces. So I just wanted to highlight that, because
I was paying attention to it, I like them.
because there wasn't, anything else in the plans were related to.
Well, that-
Steve Keach would see the differences, but just.
that and also the scoping of who was intending to rent in those mid-rises has changed a lot. It's
It
no
has,
longer
yeah.
3 bedrooms, and therefore there is not necessarily the same demand on that type of social space.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
The last item we need is to formally request an extension so that we can meet together next week, or I'm sorry, either next week or in January.
At whatever the next meeting is, yes, an extension.
Say,
And also, we should think about, is a week a sufficient amount of time for the sorts of homework that we're talking about in between, or is January a more practical target, January the 13th? And do we have too many conflicting other things on January 13th's agenda?
our preference is December.
Yeah, well, does the applicant, is the applicant comfortable that this can all be wrapped up in the next couple of days so that we can get?
Yeah, the things we see pending are your comments, and some of the comments that are given here
Yeah.
overlap
Okay.
those, so.
I mean, do you think you could get a revised plan set in by the end of the day on Wednesday? So that we can
Yeah.
get the agenda packet out on Thursday?
Tom, I'm saying yes for you, right? Staying on mute.
It does sound like it. I think most of Tim's comments were more, like you mentioned earlier, clerical in nature, as opposed to wholesale plan changes. So I really wouldn't expect much from like a layout perspective or the meat of the project. And we are actively working on it right now. So I'd like to say we can aim for that, like just knowing how much work goes into these plans.
Yeah, the target, we'll say that, the end of the day Wednesday is the target for that.
Okay.
So then the question is, can we get a quorum on the 16th?
Right, yeah.
That's part 2.
Before we go there, let me just put out,
We have to formally request our extension, right?
but we need to request an extension to a particular date. Or, I'm sorry,
We have we have to request extension for another hearing, right?
right, and that's just an arbitrary 65 days.
Well, no, I mean, it can be whatever the applicant agrees to. So,
Okay.
again, in the past, it's never been verbalized, and so we're trying to be more proactive in making making it very clear that the applicant is granting permission.
I'll only offer this comment, and that is that there are always great and good intentions to have things done in time enough in order for the next things to be done in time enough in order to meet an aggressive deadline, which I think we are setting ourselves up for.
Yeah.
All good effort will be made to that end, but I think we all need to be prepared that that may in fact not be sufficient and that January may be looming.
A 40-day extension would get us the backup of the January meeting.
I would propose that we invite from you a 40-day extension that holds open the possibility of January on the chance that, or we ask for it again.
Well, I mean, we could look at December 23rd.
Oh,
You could.
I'm not sure we could.
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure we'll get a quorum.
Yeah, do we know that we have a quorum for the 16th?
Well, let's find out.
Yeah, let's
Find
find
out.
out.
Straw poll? Straw poll, anybody, who's available for the 16th?
I think so, but.
Okay, everybody in the room is good. Kathy?
But I don't count for the quorum.
Got it, understood. Okay, so we can field the team on the 16th. And we can work from there.
Okay.
This is going to be very tough.
Do we want to straw poll the 23rd?
I'm sorry?
It's going to be tough. I've got Tuesday and Wednesday to work on this.
wanna straw poll
Then
everything
you're
else.
proving my point.
Yeah.
So maybe the 16th is not the.
Can we straw poll the 23rd?
Yeah.
We can. I'm not putting my hand up for it, though.
I can do it. I mean, looks like we have lunch, that looks like a really reluctant hand.
That's really reluctant.
5.5, yeah.
Yeah, that's.
So we have 5,
Do we have
Which is
voting
great, so
members?
we'll get sick.
huh?
Do we have, if we're making motions that night, who are the eligible voting members to cast a vote? Wouldn't be another element of the quorum.
So then the question is, I think Eric has shown himself to be very engaged in the project. It's a matter of whether Kellen and Brian have sufficient history.
All right, I'll switch things around. So we'll work to get it done for the
Doesn't
16th.
necessarily need to be a Monday.
Yeah, I was going to say, do we have to do Monday?
Could it be a different day of the week in that same week?
It's okay. It's fine. We'll get it done. Right, applicant?
And,
What are we talking about?
Gonna get done. He's saying we're going to get done for the 16th.
and if we don't, it may be January. I'm a realist. Okay,
Can we ask for the 40-day extension just in case?
that's where I was going before.
Okay. We're going to do our best to get it done on the 16th, but if not, it may be January.
Will we return to this applicant later on in the night about other issues, or is this the
You
end?
know, I've got to take, I have to take Thursday and Friday off, so I can't rearrange it. So I've got Tuesday and Wednesday. We'll do our best to make it work, but there's a lot to be done in the next
Or it's
48
January.
hours.
Or it's January.
Is January realistic as far as staff being able to process?
Yeah,
That is working
no,
both ends
no,
of
no
it.
question. Let's try and just take 1 minute to see if there's another day next week. Even another day would help. Let's see.
The 19th.
Has the question of a performance
do
bond been
19th.
broached?
What about the 17th?
Overlap with DEI commission, but only by a little bit.
What time do they meet?
6:30, or sorry, 6.
6 o'clock.
6.
In this room?
In this room.
How long are your meetings?
They have been known to go as little as half an hour, but usually they're an hour.
Okay.
So,
it's
I guess
I
we
mean,
could stick
7
around
is.
for 7.
7 o'clock would be better for me anyway.
7 o'clock on Tuesday?
7 o'clock, I mean, that would definitely help. I think that would help the applicant too, even if I didn't have a conflict.
Straw poll is 7 o'clock on Tuesday.
The 17th.
17th. Kathy? Oh, you're,
You're not, according
Well,
look-
I can be here, but I don't count for quorum.
very good. So it looks like we have quorum for the 17th. Perfect. So that'll
Yeah,
be the day.
that's good. Thank
Okay,
you.
okay, so we're going to do that on the 17th
Putting it in.
At 7?
at 7.
Technically, this is a public hearing.
Mm-hmm.
There are perhaps members of the public that have an interest in this topic. If anyone does, now would be an occasion to come forward and express it. Anyone online? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment period. And we will continue this meeting to
So we do have the request in for the extension to the 17th.
I will
officially.
make my official, we'd request a 40-day extension.
Perfect.
Let me know if we need to put it.
In writing.
Well, I'll write that.
Yeah, if
same-
you could, just-
I'll do that same email
yeah,
I did
thank
to
you.
you.
Awesome.
That being done, we will continue this meeting to Tuesday, the 17th of December.
This item.
This agenda.
This agenda item, at 7 o'clock in this location.
Let me just make sure this room is open.
There's nothing else going on
No?
on the main
Okay.
schedule.
Great. Thank you.
Also, have a very long evening.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank
Much appreciated.
The holidays, there's less conflicts.
With apologies to the folks that are in the audience, we have taken a little bit longer on this item than we had anticipated. We're going to take a brief 5-minute recess, and then we will reconvene here at, on my watch, 10 past 8. Should be more like 12 past 8 on the clock.
That was pretty brilliant.
You,
Took me like 10 minutes. Yeah. Oh, wait a second.
No luck.
Oh, my goodness.
Hi. Thanks for helping out.
My pleasure. Yeah, so our committee put together some responses to our Exactly, our response to the response.
Yep.
Document from the 17th.
Same thing. I mean, it's
How untangling and
I think we're done. There weren't, I mean, you know, I told them they were here, there were no questions.
just this driveway thing that Doug emailed about here.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of loose ends.
I know.
There are a lot
I
of loose
saw
ends.
that today,
And I've got a,
and I'm not even paying attention.
I know.
You're gonna have to, got it, Conservation Commission. Yeah, maybe perhaps a mutual proposal that fits one way or the other, because their interests are the opposite.
The west side of Hanover Street.
This week you're talking about.
It's basically just south of the Gillies.
Further down.
It seems safer away from that.
It's just
intersection.
that,
On the agenda is 3B, Lebanon Housing Authority, 31 Romano Circle, Tax Map 101, Lot 20, zoned R2, request for site plan review to construct a plus or minus 3,882 square foot, two-story accessory office building for the existing multifamily complex, together with associated site improvements, including relocating a basketball court and new parking spaces. I believe relocating a basketball court has been omitted from that, but that's what it tells me here. PB 2024-41-SPR, postponed from November 12th, 2024. Mr. Corwin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Staff has reviewed the application, recommends that it is complete enough for the board to accept jurisdiction. Let's commence review.
Do we have a motion?
I move that we find it ready for review, complete.
Second?
Yeah.
Thank you, Jerry. Roll call, beginning with Kathy. That's an aye, I take it? I didn't hear you. Still not hearing you.
I'm sorry, someone muted me. Yes.
Kellen says yes.
Patrick?
Oh, Patrick says yes.
Richard says yes.
Andrew, yes.
Chair votes aye.
Eric, I.
Brian, yes.
All right, well, it is unanimous. Do we have someone from the Housing Authority to speak to the application?
Yes, good evening to the board. For the record, my name is Jeff Merritt. I'm an engineer with Granite Engineering. We're the civil site engineers for the project. We have a few people on with us this evening. Let me introduce them. First is Dita Alonso. Dita is the executive director with Lebanon Housing Authority, and Lebanon Housing Authority, of course, is the owner and the applicant for this project. Also with us is Jerry Wiebel. Jerry is from Right Track Design. He's the project manager for the project and also in charge of the building architecture. And then Justin Daniel from Granite Engineering, also an engineer that worked on this project. What we have for the board this evening is a small site plan application and then 3 associated waiver requests. And this is all relative to the property at 31 Romano Circle. Mr. Chairman, if it would be okay, or Tim, I'd like to share the plans so that kind of the board can follow along.
While Tim is doing that, I'll just comment that this is a very complete plan set. I absorbed it readily, and I think the board will be in a pretty good space to be able to pick up on what it is that you're explaining with pace and with precision.
Sure. Let me get through the meat of it here, and then if the board has questions, please chime in. I think the board's going to be familiar with this property. Again, this is the property at 31 Romano Circle. I'm going to flip to the overview plan here. This is property that's owned by the Housing Authority. They've owned it for many years. The city references this lot as map 101, lot 20. The entire parcel is located within the residential 2 zoning district. This is roughly a 9.5 acre parcel of land. We have frontage on South Main Street here to the southeast. And we also have frontage on, or used to have frontage on what's called Romano Circle. And for those of you that are familiar with the property, Romano Circle was recently discontinued. Since its conception, it was actually a city roadway, but it was a cul-de-sac and a city street that served just this property. It was quite unique to have a city road that serviced only one property. So recently, that city street, we petitioned the city to discontinue that, and that's been granted. So Romano Circle, we don't have frontage on anymore because it's a private roadway. Nevertheless, that same street, private or public, is how we access the majority of the development here. Also notable on the plan here is the Connecticut River. This is our abutter to the north, if you will, or our boundary to the north. Because of the Connecticut River, portions of this property are actually located within the flood zone. As you can see on this plan, there are a number of buildings on the site. 8 of the structures that are out there today contain a total of 46 multifamily rental units. So there's 46 units spread out within 8 different buildings. There's also a building right up here, which is an existing garage. It's a maintenance building for for the Housing Authority. Our proposal is shown here on the overview plan as well. Again, we have a very large piece of land, about 9.5 acres, but we're working in a very small area. This red highlighted area that you see on the overview plan here, that's our project area. It's about half an acre or so or under, represents about 5% of the overall property.
Excuse me,
I'm gonna flip.
could you actually zoom in on, oh, there you go. Thank you.
Let me flip to one more sheet here. This is the site plan, which is a zoomed in version of that red square I just showed you. The project is to construct a new office building. Right now, the Housing Authority operates out of an office building right here that's within a building that has multifamily units in it. This office is too small for the Housing Authority's needs, and the project proposes a separate standalone office building right here. As proposed, this is a 2-story building, and it has a gross floor area of 3,882 square feet. We have positioned it towards the entrance to the project or entrance to the property off of South Main Street, and right adjacent to the other building that the Housing Authority uses for maintenance, which is the garage. So it's kind of front and center here where it should be. As part of the project, we're proposing an additional 12 parking spaces along Romano Circle, very similar to how it is on the other side of the access roadway and throughout the cul-de-sac. So there'll be 12 new parking spaces here, including 2 handicap spaces with an accessible route to the new building. Some additional on-site improvements that are really associated with the new building include some new pole-mounted light fixtures in front of the building, as well as some building-mounted fixtures around the building. This kidney-shaped area right here to the west of the new building is a proposed bioretention pond. That is a stormwater feature that will collect, treat, and detain stormwater runoff associated with the new building. And then we propose some site lights, landscaping in and around the building area, which I'll get to in a little bit later. We did need a little bit of relief from the zoning board for this project. Again, the property is located in the R2 district. Multifamily conversion is allowed in this district, but multifamily itself is not allowed. This was not originally a conversion project, thus the use is considered a non-conforming use. All that said, it's been here 50 plus years, so it's certainly been around a long time and everybody's used to it. Nevertheless, the expansion of a non-conforming use required a special exception from the ZBA, and then expanding a non-conforming use into a new structure on the property required a variance. So both the special exception and the variance were granted by the zoning board back in August of this year, so we received both of those approvals. We did provide some architectural plans for the board. I'll just flip through them real quickly here. We have a first floor plan which shows how the first floor would be laid out. This, for reference, is your entrance off of the parking lot side, and it shows the internal office layout. Mechanicals are in the back side of the building, as well as a stairway to the second story. We have a second floor plan right here, which shows the conference room and office layout on the second floor. And then we have some black line elevations, which show the different sides of the building. This one in the top left here is what would face the parking lot, if you will, or Romano Circle. This is the back of the building here on the right-hand side. This is what faces South Main Street, and then this is the view that basically faces the river. And then last but not least for the architecture, this is probably more beneficial than all the other plans combined. Just a rendering to show you how this would look. The rendering shows the new building in relation to the existing garage that I mentioned. It also shows the new building in relation to the proposed parking lot in front of it. and it shows the relationship of the first floor of the building to the second floor. Not the entire building is 2 stories, just a portion of the building is 2 stories. And again, Jerry Wiebolt from Right Track is here should the board have questions on that. Moving back to the site plan and specifically the waivers, Mr. Chairman, if it's okay, I'll go through those quickly.
Please do.
Okay. There are 3 waivers that we hope the board would consider granting for the project. 2 of the waivers are specific to the project area, so that red area. So 2 of the waivers are relative to the area we're working in. And then there's a 3rd waiver, which is basically just a general waiver for all those areas outside of the red area that form the property, but the areas that we're not working in. So I'll start with the general waiver. We'll come back to the overview plan here. So you can see the parent property, again, is 9.5 acres. We're only working in 5% of it. We're requesting a waiver from Article 6 design requirements for the areas outside of the red area there. Even though we're working in one small area of the site plan, the regulations technically apply to the overall parcel. So what we're asking for is a waiver from not having to comply with those regulations for the areas that we're not working in, that aren't part of the project. We feel that strict conformity would pose an unnecessary hardship to the applicant. It would require a real detailed survey in the areas outside of the project area. It would require additional analysis, design, and certainly construction costs that could jeopardize this small-natured project. We do think that granting of the waiver would not be contrary to the spirit of the ordinance. Portions of this property have gone through prior site plan approvals with this board, so applicable regulations were adhered to when it was originally permitted and developed. This is also a situation where this development has coexisted in harmony with the surrounding area for a better part of 50 years. So in part, if you read the purpose of the site plan regulations is to protect the public health, safety, and welfare of the city residents. We believe that the fact that portions of this development have gone through prior approval and because of the long-time harmonious existence with the community, we feel that the spirit and intent of the regulations would be maintained if the board were to grant the waiver that we're requesting. And then the last 2 waivers are site-specific, and I'm going to flip to the landscape plan because they illustrate it best. If I can find it here, bear with me. This is our landscape plan. So the first site-specific waiver we're requesting is section 6.2B, which is for perimeter landscaping, and we're specifically talking about this area in through here on the plan. What that section of the regulations requires is a 15-foot landscape strip along the property line. If you review our plan, the area behind the proposed office is fairly narrow. The immediate area behind the office has some grading proposed for a swale to convey stormwater around the new building. And we've proposed keeping as much vegetation as we can back there while still being able to build the building and build the swale. There are some specific conditions with this land and the surrounding properties that we believe would properly carry out the spirit and intent of the regulations. If you look at our grading plan just real quickly, it doesn't really do it justice, but I'm going to bring it up. There, right behind us, there is a significant topographic difference in elevation. Our site is roughly 42 feet lower than our properties to the south here. So we have a 42-foot vertical change that does the buffering for us, if you will. That vertical change occurs in a really very steep area and very steep slope, which is heavily vegetated with woodland. Not only do we have a 42-foot slope, but we have trees growing on it, which really screen the building from that direction. Because of that specific condition of the land, we think granting this waiver carries out the spirit and intent of the regulation, and we'd ask the board to consider it for that area. And the last waiver request, again, is project specific or project area specific. This is from section 6.2D, which is landscaping around the building. This section requires 10 feet of landscaping around the building. If you look at our plan, we have 10 feet to the east. 10 feet to the east. We have 10 feet to the back, and then we have 10 feet over here. We don't have 10 feet right here. We actually have 4, and then we have a little more than 10 feet in this area. We've tried to provide the largest landscape buffer that we could. For us to provide the 10-foot landscape strip here, we would either have to push the building back into that slope, which would be obviously not a good thing from an engineering standpoint, but it would also push it over the rear setback. Or it would force us to eliminate the parking in front of the building, which would be the most logical parking for this, and narrow up the Romano Circle roadway that exists. If the board remembers this, there was a recent application, a lot line adjustment between this property and a butter that, our butter to the south that this board approved maybe a few months ago. We've done everything we could to provide as much buffer as we could, including doing a lot line adjustment with the neighbor to the south. That lot line adjustment moved this property line further away, which allowed our building to be pushed back a little bit and provide some sort of landscape buffer or landscape strip here. If you look at our landscape plan, you can see the landscaping we proposed to the east between the new office and the garage. This is 15 feet here. Most of that area is behind the plane of the front of the garage. This is the plane of the front of the garage. So most of this area is set back behind the garage that you won't see. It would be grassed. This area in through here has a sewer pump station that needs to be accessible, and we'd like to be able to pass through these buildings to get to the rear of each building in the future. So we'd like that area to be just grassed in that location. To the south or behind the building, again, is that swale area. We are going to vegetate it, but we're going to vegetate it, we're proposing to vegetate it with grass. And of course, we have a 42-foot high hill with vegetation on top of that. And then to the west, we have our 10 feet here, and you'll notice that just beyond that is our bioretention pond that has a significant amount of plantings associated with that. So we feel that this is kind of meeting the spirit and intent of the ordinance by having some plantings on that side of the building there. And then lastly, in front of the building, I mentioned we have 4 feet right here. We have a mix of ornamental grasses and shrubs in this area. And then in the area that we do have larger landscape strip, we have a tree and some shrubs as well. So we'd ask the board consider granting this waiver as strict conformance would pose an unnecessary hardship, and because there's some unique features to this property, mainly that large woodland buffer behind us and significant topographic change. We believe the proposed landscaping in conjunction with the new location of the building on the property would carry out the spirit intent of the regulations. Mr. Chairman, I appreciate you listening to all that. I know it's getting late. I will hand it back to you, and if you or any of the board members has questions, we'd be certainly happy to try and answer them.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the quality application as well as the succinct introduction to it. Are there any questions from the board?
Chair, this is Kathy.
Yes, Kathy.
Just one thing to point out. I remember, I think it probably was back a few years when the application for the garage up front came through. One of the things that was discovered at that point in time is there were these biodiversity stormwater areas throughout the development, but whoever was maintaining the development at that time didn't realize their purpose and was just mowing through them and over them, and they were not really servicing or serving the way they were intended. And at that time, the housing authority said, well, now we know, now we'll maintain them for the purpose for which they were intended. And I just wanted to make sure from the housing authority now that this one, as well as all the others throughout the community, were serving their intended purpose.
Yeah, you have a good memory. You're right. That was something that was picked up when the garage project came to fruition a number of years ago. There is a stormwater area here here, and I believe this trench as well. Those areas, I think, were not known or were forgotten that they were stormwater ponds. They have since been reconstructed and rehabilitated. So those, in conjunction with our new one over here, would be part of the ongoing stormwater management system out here going forward. But Dita can confirm that, but I know for a fact that those were reconstructed.
Great.
Thank you. Yes, I can confirm they were reconstructed.
Yes, they were reconstructed and they have all been maintained.
Great.
Correct.
Is there a maintenance, is there any form of maintenance documentation on site that would remind parties that are not in the call as to the care and feeding of these
There
features?
is.
Perfect.
Yeah, there is that project for the garage implemented one for those three, and then our current stormwater design includes a maintenance manual for that one as well, for the new one.
Terrific, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions?
So very thorough.
No, it's tight, it's good.
Inspection and maintenance manual reported.
Are people good with going through the request for waivers en masse, or do we want to pick them apart? I'm good with them as
Okay
they
with them as a group, batch them.
Yeah.
Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion that we approve all three waivers?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Eric, thank you. And beginning with Kathy?
Kathy votes yes.
Kellen votes yes.
Patrick votes yes.
Richard votes yes.
Andrew, yes.
Jerry votes aye?
Eric votes yes.
Brian's yes.
Fantastic, it is unanimous.
Just in the future, we should just identify the section numbers at least for the waiver motion.
okay.
Just so
Okay.
that it's clear in the minutes.
All right. So in totality is not in totality.
It can be, yeah.
Got it. Understood. Back up the truck or no?
Was that,
Should we redo it with the,
it's fine for now. It's not.
Okay. We have in front of us also a draft motion to approve the site plan. Is there any discussion, or is there any reading through that we have? Is there any further?
is this in the packet, or
Yeah,
does it need to be read into the record?
If I could, I did, the conditions as they appear in the draft motion are as they appear in the staff memo, with a couple of exceptions, and those exceptions are highlighted in yellow, and they all relate to the third-party inspection provision. So this project is sort of on the line as to whether or not we would typically require third-party review, and so to provide maximum flexibility to the city as well as to the applicant, we're proposing our standard third-party review language, but also to add an alternative that would allow the city engineer to perform that work if available to do so at the time that the project is under construction. And so just let me, I'll read that aloud just so the applicant is aware of what that is. But this is a second paragraph to condition 18 as it appears in the staff memo. So the proposed second paragraph would read, alternatively, at the discretion of the Department of Public Works, the applicant shall coordinate with the city engineer to observe the installation of the site infrastructure. Such coordination shall include preparing a tentative construction schedule and agreeing to provide the city engineer a minimum of 7 days' notice prior to a required or requested inspection. The city engineer's time shall be billed to the applicant in accordance with section 4.71 of the site plan review regulations and shall be paid pursuant to condition 15. And so that then requires a tweak to condition 15. And there's a second sentence added to 15 that reads, if the city engineer performs the on-site, condition 15 is relative to paying the engineer review fees for the city engineer's time in reviewing the application. So the second sentence added to proposed condition 15 reads, if the city engineer performs the on-site inspection as set forth in condition 18, the reviewing engineer fee shall be paid prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy. This would just allow the fees to be billed and paid all at one time rather than having two separate phases or two separate bills. And then finally, again, related to related to this is we updated the language in condition number 24 related to as-built plans to provide a little bit more flexibility. It reads, "The applicant shall provide digital as-built plans, PDF format, and CAD.DWG format using New Hampshire State Plan Coordinate System to the satisfaction of the Department of Public Works and to the Planning and Development Department." And as always, as now required by state statute, we need to actively engage the applicant in commenting on the proposal to require inspection of certain aspects of the infrastructure.
Is there any comment or objection from the applicant?
There is no objection.
So then for the reading of the motion, I'll read everything up to the to the conditions, and then state the conditions are set forth in the packet and as revised by you, Mr. Corwin.
Exactly.
All right, then I move that the Lebanon Planning Board approve the application of Lebanon Housing Authority regarding 31 Romano Circle, Tax Map 101, Lot 20, Zoned R2, PB 2024-41-SPR, for site plan approval to construct a plus or minus 3,882 square foot two-story accessory office building for the existing multifamily complex, together with associated site improvements, as shown on a plan set titled Residential Site Plan, Lebanon Housing Authority, prepared by Granite Engineering LLC, dated 10/14/24, revised 11/25/24, 15 sheets, including any and all submissions and testimony provided for and during the public hearing. In support of its decision, the board finds that the applicant has submitted plans, testimony, technical data, information, reports, and studies variously prepared by a professional civil engineer, licensed land surveyor, an architect, and a licensed landscape architect that together satisfactorily demonstrate compliance with the applicable requirements of the site plan review regulations, except as may reasonably be addressed through the imposition of certain conditions of approval set forth below, and except as may have been waived pursuant to section 7.1. The approval is subject to the conditions as set forth in the packet for today's meeting and subject to the emendations read out by Mr. Corwin.
Do you have a second? Jerry?
Yeah. Yes.
Do a roll call vote, beginning with Kathy?
Kathy votes yes.
Ellen votes yes.
Edric votes yes.
Richard votes yes.
Andrew votes yes.
Jerry votes aye?
Eric, yes?
Brian, yes.
It is unanimous. Congratulations, thank you.
Godspeed.
We appreciate you guys. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Moving on
Thank
to,
you.
moving on to public hearing item 3D, Psychotti Holding, I'm sorry. Moving on to item 4A, conceptual review, Choice Storage LLC, 0 Etna Road, tax map 26, lot 17, CWN All Waste LLC, 40 North La Bombard Road, tax map 51, lot 10, Chalut Properties LLC, 32 La Bombard Road, tax map 51, lot 11, Route 120 Hotel LLC, 35 La Bombard Road, tax map 64 and lot 21. Chalut Properties LLC, 25 La Bombard Road, tax map 64, lot 25. Cubio LLC, 39 La Bombard Road, tax map 51, lot 14. TLL Realty LLC, 41 La Bombard Road, tax map 51, lot 1. And Notch Climbing Real Estate LLC, 33 La Bombard Road, tax map 51, lot 15, zoned INDL and RL3, conceptual review of a proposed planned business park and major subdivision PB 2024-47-CON. Before we,
What were you going to say?
before I go any further, I'm looking to you, Mr. Corwin.
Just to back up for a second, either right now or after this application, if the board could just motion to postpone the two other agenda items, just so that we don't have to renotice them.
Let's back up the truck and
Yeah.
officially postpone items 3C and D.
To the January 13th meeting at 6:30 PM.
January
January 13th, I believe.
January 13th at 6:30 PM.
Yep.
So said, so done.
I know we're inconsistent about this, but if you could, I guess if you could do a motion, that would be appreciated.
I make a motion that we postpone items 3C and D, Grafton County Senior Citizens Council, Lincoln, City of Lebanon, and Psychotti Holdings LLC, 51 Evans Drive, to our January the 13th meeting in the year of our Lord 2025.
So I seconded that.
Richard, thank you for the second. All in favor, beginning with Kathy?
Kathy votes yes.
Kellen votes yes.
Patrick votes yes.
Richard votes yes.
Andrew, yes.
Jerry votes aye.
Eric, yes?
Brian, yes.
Thank you, it is unanimous. Moving on to what I've read
Thank you.
copiously before. Thank you, Mr. Corwin. And do you have any
Read it
setup
again.
of the
No,
conceptual review?
It's just a conceptual discussion and
Perfect.
no,
Been around this block. once
non-binding.
before- Once before, and also once before with this particular applicant, so I think everybody is familiar with the rules. Gentlemen, would you like to introduce yourself and take us through your project?
Hi, I'm Jay Campion and Stan Nash.
Dan Nash, Advanced Geomatics. I'm providing the engineering support.
We're coming to you with a request for the conditional use permit for a planned business park in conjunction with the preliminary for the major subdivision simultaneously, because the subdivision is looking to have residential on it, and because the lot that's being subdivided is in the light industrial zone, and residential isn't allowed in the light industrial zone without the conditional use permit to have the planned business park, we're doing those two things simultaneously. We have submitted the necessary documentation for a preliminary for a meeting scheduled, I believe, for January 13th, is it? And we're before you to show you what we're looking at here for a subdivision. As you know, this was proposed as the minimum subdivision required to have a planned business park, and that this is being done in conjunction with an effort put forward for the Lebanon Rec Department, where there would be property that doesn't, a subdivision of this property that doesn't show on this plan, for recreational fields for the city. And it specifically does not show, this subdivision does not show engineering or the like for anything beyond this subdivision at this time.
So,
I was hoping for
if I
the
might.
OA too, that shows
Sure.
a good overall diagram.
If I might, since we last met with you,
Yes.
we've actually added three new members to the planning board that
Oh,
had
okay.
not had the experience of seeing one of the earlier presentations.
Okay,
So if you would perhaps presume to provide as much background on the
okay, well,
intent of the,
I don't have I can get some paper product.
or just if there are materials on screen that you could just speak to.
I don't know what's on screen.
Well, this,
Chair, this is Kathy. Maybe I can ask a question while he's looking for that information.
sure, please do.
In that tiny little purple square area there in the middle,
There it is.
is that the residential that was previously proposed, or is this an entirely different combination of residential buildings?
No, that's what was originally proposed for this site.
Okay.
It's just been
Thank-
flipped around to accommodate the realities of the topography.
Who's driving the presentation, and whomever that is?
I have it up, but I can put up anything you like. What would you like on the screen? I don't know where that is. Is it part of the conditional use permit application?
Okay, well, I wanted to show it because it incorporates the north west corner of the property for recreation fields for the
Are you
city.
upside down or right side up?
And it incorporates a residential development that basically utilizes the rest of the remainder of the property for residential, with the exception of a couple of spots that are designated specifically for commercial that relates specifically to the residential, for example, for a childcare facility and that sort of thing. The, the, the the recreational piece is here. And I think, as I explained before, the proposal before that is being put forward after the subdivision is created will be to have, to create a private, this is an important piece, a privately funded TIF district that will, that will pay for the build-out of the recreational facilities as well as the infrastructure for the residential, a portion of the taxes for which will support those two things. Will pay for putting in the soccer fields and the recreational fields as planned, and the sewer, water, and roadways for the development. One of the reasons why we have not done the full build-out plan is because a critical piece of this property here is where the city is going to have ownership, and I wanted to have, or it's, I think, advisable to have the city involved in the design of that piece, since it's going to be their property. And that's also a portion of the property that has the wildlife corridor that crosses it. It has protected wetlands that need to be protected, all of which I think are important to incorporate in the overall plan. And so once the planned business park is established, the property gets deeded to the city, and the city becomes a partner, if you will, in the planning of the recreational fields as well as the utilities, the sewer, water, roads that go in. That's kind of where we're at right now. Again, I want to emphasize, having watched the city council budget meeting the other night, I wanted to reemphasize the fact that this is not putting a burden on the taxpayer at all, or responsibility on the taxpayers, because it's not going to be, the taxpayers aren't going to be responsible for funding the TIF. It'll be done privately.
If you could maybe go into more detail as to how that would work, I'm not familiar with a privately funded TIF. If you could enlighten me.
Well, I think I'm not an expert. I've been talking with city manager and the assistant city manager about how it's done, and I've conversed with some other private equity sources, but basically what it means is that that is a privately funded funding source for the building of the infrastructure, all of that, and that its repayment of that comes out of a portion of the property taxes that are generated by the real estate that's created.
So that does divert taxes away from the city towards the district.
It does not divert current taxes.
No, but it diverts all the new taxes for the new development.
And it also generates.
You're borrowing, it's just borrowing against future tax earnings.
Yes,
But
and it also,
specifying it has to go to this area instead of.
it also generates new taxes at the same time. It doesn't create, it creates new taxes.
But it also creates new burdens on because it's development, and it creates new burdens on the services for the city. That's why we have impact fees as well as
That's right.
taxes and.
Absolutely. That's why you have impact fees, and those are all remain part of the product.
Is the tax rate on this particular parcel higher than the other taxes, or just, I mean, you know, is that what a TIF means, that it's like a special assessment district, or is some other design?
No, I don't think so. I think it's just basically the standard level of property tax that the assessor comes up with for the property values.
I think we have.
Obviously, this is an area that the board would need a lot more information filled in.
I think there may be as many understandings of a district as there are people in the room.
Yes.
So we might want to just set that aside
Yes.
and just.
Well, I agree.
In other words, we understand your intent, and
Yes.
we'll take that at face value, and we can
Sure.
get onto the substance
Yeah.
of what you're planning to do.
Yes. Well, what I'm planning to do is to take a good crack at the housing problem that we have. The proposal that I have starts with a couple of 46-unit apartment houses on this subdivision, and would move into a more substantial subdivision in Phase 2 that would incorporate a variety of other sources.
So this that we're seeing here is a little piece
Yes,
of that.
that's right.
Just the rest is just not.
That's right.
Yeah.
The whole purpose of what we're doing with it, it's essentially Phase 1. Phase 1 gives us the genesis to do the bigger project, which is to hopefully enact the TIF and do the swap with the city for the recreation piece.
But the idea is to start this before creating the TIF, before.
Yes.
Definitely, we have to have legitimacy, we have to have the planned business park to start the process.
I wanted to ask actually about why a planned business park? Are you familiar with the zoning changes that are being proposed for this area?
Yes, I am.
And that it's all going to be, if it passes, GC1?
I think that
which makes
just
housing.
Blended. It would be grand if
Does
that
that,
happens.
does that obviate the need for a planned business park?
It would.
Okay.
But
There's no guarantee.
there's no guarantee that that's going to happen.
When does that go before? Does that go before the voters in March?
I don't believe it goes.
I don't think it's going to need to go to the voters.
Oh,
It's
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 just
just
gonna
a
city-
council decision, so that'd be mid-January.
Oh. So this may all be
It
fairly
may-
moot.
It may well be, but this has been on the only method that I had to go forward for a very long time. And the whole North Lebanon Route 120 rethink started in April and has gone through the iterations that it's gone through. I think it's grand, and I've been involved with that. I think it's really a good thing. And it would completely eliminate the need for the planned business park.
But we would need a PURD.
I don't know if we would. I don't know. I don't know enough about
We
GC1.
might have to morph it into something else.
Maybe, but I don't know enough about GC1 to say that. But I do know that it would suit the purposes of this very well. And
Is any of the housing proposed to be owner occupied, or is this all, as you see it, rental housing?
oh, I think it would definitely, there'd be a percentage of it that would be owner occupied. I would hope that this whole development would address a bunch of different missing pieces of the housing market in the Upper Valley. And one of the things that I personally feel that if you're paying $4,000 a month, it should be for a mortgage, not rent. And there are a lot of different ways to accomplish that, but that's certainly an important piece of, a missing piece of the housing market that we have. So, and again, the assortment of proposed or potential housing types is pretty broad. And I'm looking into, the little bit of an aside, I'm looking into working with a couple of local housing builders, specifically the LaValleys and Unity Homes that produce modular constructed homes locally. I've done business with LaValleys before. I'm encouraged that they would be interested in getting us going on a process where they could be making things and we could be putting them up in sequence. So, because that would speed things up, it would also lower the prices for this. I mean, unfortunately, housing costs are high. Construction costs are high. And ownership, for example, of a home, it might be achievable at a price only if the value of the land is shared between homeowners. Condominium type ownership rather than lot by lot ownership, to keep the price down. And that's the truth of the value of the property in Lebanon, and it's certainly true in my town in Hanover. It's just, I don't know how to do it in Hanover. It's, when a housing lot is $400,000, you can't build a $400,000 home on it. It just doesn't work. So.
So with the 246 buildings, those are a total of 92 apartments, or would those be
Correct.
condos?
Those would be apartments.
Apartments, okay, and that's phase one,
Yes,
and that would allow you to facilitate the TIF, potentially.
potentially.
And then the business park is just if the zoning doesn't change.
Correct.
All right.
Yep.
And the project that's proposed, or like this we're discussing in front of us right now without all of the extra phases is just the minimum number that is required to establish a business park?
Correct.
Or went to the business park, okay,
Yep, that's exactly it. Yep,
got it.
that's exactly it.
When you presented this before, there was some discussion about the fact that the wildlife corridors ran directly through the recreation sites for children, and you were going to do some further research and figure out how to handle that, since the two don't mix so well.
The wildlife corridor actually skirts the recreation area. And we're submitting the wildlife study that was done, that I had done in 2015 and updated in 2019, that documents where that goes. And I believe there are clarifications that are proposed in the zoning change package that clarify exactly how that's to be treated. I'm not exactly sure where they landed on it, because in the couple of different sessions that have already occurred where the zoning changes were discussed, the Conservation Commission pieces were left out of that discussion. They were sort of, it was said that that will come in later on. So I'm hoping that we'll find out what those pieces are when the time comes, when, I guess on the 12th, when the zoning stuff goes to the Conservation Commission. But to answer your question more specifically, under this proposal, that land would be the city's to decide whether they wanted to have a recreation area or not in that specific strip where the wildlife corridor crosses the property.
That's addressed in the January submittal, but you'll be, I'm not sure there's any discussion in January, isn't it just completeness?
Yes,
January?
yes. It's completeness review in January,
But
yes.
in the documents, there's, I don't know if, is that wildlife corridor document on the city's webpage? I didn't want to reproduce the entire 58 pages of the wildlife corridor study for Lebanon that was done in 2016, so I included the cover in my application. And hopefully it can be linked to, I didn't have a link, so you can see it, but there was quite an extensive discussion of the Signal Hill corridor and Rick's Ledges, and those corridors run along the northern edge of our property. They don't come down into what we anticipate to develop, unless there's some further study or discussion done and moves it further down. Rick Vanderpool had some symbols that showed it right on our property line. He only had a tiny symbol, he didn't have a swath, so we'll have to have some discussion as to how wide the swath is. That's the Conservation Commission's work.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting discussion, because the assumption, my assumption was that the wildlife corridor went directly west to east, but in fact it doesn't. It goes west to north because of the topography. The critters come down Etna Road, cross where the swamp ends, and go head up toward Rick's Ledges. They don't go straight up and over the hill.
So we're going to see you with a formal application in January
Just for, I think, the process.
It'd be for completeness.
for completeness.
Yeah.
Then
Can I just
we
make
come
one
back in
comment?
February.
Yeah, okay.
On the TIF district, just how the TIF district is going to work is interesting, but it's just, it's not, I'm, just when the application does come before you, It's not for the planning board to decide, or really?
Right.
Just, okay. I just
Not
think-
relevant.
Nothing to do with us.
Only in that, that's the trail that I'm walking down, whether I get to the other end of it or not.
Sure. So where I'm coming from is that I'm looking at the materials here, and admittedly, it is sort of late into the day. And I don't know that I have a particularly good understanding of what you're looking to do, which I would hope to have when an application comes before us. So I don't know
Ask
how much
what-
help I've been tonight in providing
The-
responses to this conceptual.
In terms of what we're intending to do,
I think, I understand what you have imagined for developing the property, but I don't know how it is that a lot of the materials that I'm looking at necessarily direct me to that.
Hopefully, there's much more material in our application that's
Okay.
coming in January. And in particular, the one sheet that you saw up earlier has some more clarifying notes, and the package explains more of what is on that overall sheet. But Paul Simon did a good job with some tables and
Okay.
information, and hopefully we can expand and answer your questions or provide supporting materials if you don't see them.
Okay.
but the drawing that is in this package does go through the specifics of the planned business park and the pieces of the property that are designated for commercial and that are designated for industrial and that are designated. So that's here and now on our already submitted stuff for this, because this is sort of the step that I'm going. I wouldn't want to do a subdivision if I can't do the residential, right? And I can't do the residential unless I have the conditional use to do it. Now, by January, or whatever, maybe the zoning will be changed and it'll be a whole different kettle of fish, which would be grand.
Yes, it would be.
And I'm optimistic. I haven't heard a lot of resistance to it. So,
It strikes me as that there shouldn't be any.
Some will show up.
always.
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 There are too many things that are advantaged by it.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. And that's why I'm keep moving on this, because I think it's really an exciting opportunity to do some stuff that everybody says they want to happen.
Sure.
So,
There's a tremendous energy about rezoning that area of Lebanon, and there is, in your application, an intent to do something that allows.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for coming in and talking to us again about this.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Have a nice holiday. See you next month.
Are you going to
Okay.
still be discussing the zoning changes?
There may be some gas in the tank for that. We have Mr. Reichert here. I take it, Nate, you'll be taking us through study item, review of proposed amendments of the zoning ordinance and zoning map.
Yeah, I can't remember where we left off. I guess the thought is we did have the package of amendments that were brought forward by staff, the 120 amendments, the pattern zoning amendments, what Tim and I have deemed the technical amendments. I know that there are two private requests that Mr. Nash has been involved in. If he's here, he can speak to those two issues as well.
I think those came up in the
Those were,
conversation we had. Yeah,
well, both were map changes.
right.
But all things being equal, I think we're, how deep into the weeds do you guys want to get this evening? And I'll take my direction from you. I guess I compose the point of, I can answer questions as the state and condition as to where we're at with the overall package.
So I missed that meeting, and so I apologize for that. Was there discussion about expanding the allowable uses in GC1?
We have, I know as a staff, we clearly have had that conversation, because I think it's one where, one of my concerns is that inadvertently we create a nonconformity because of an
Exactly.
existing use
I'm
within the
thinking about
neighborhood.
the climbing gym doesn't seem to be allowed for in there, and I can't see any reason that wouldn't be good to have in the neighborhood.
Yeah, the one good advantage of the GC1 neighborhood is that it's really focused in on this area of town. It's not like there's not another area of GC1 someplace
Right.
else in the community that we would inadvertently be impacting. So I think it's one where the use codes that are available in this zone would be, I think, clearly on the table of trying to square what the existing uses are, making sure we're not making them, we have a plan to keep them all legal conforming. I mean, that goes to, there was some direction from council when the city council looked at this and said, please do not undo the changes that were made relative to the automobile dealerships that were done last spring. That was one of the topics. So I think that's one where if you have done some of that work, we're all ears on recommendations you would make as far as additional use codes we can either add into or consider. The one upside to the zone change that's going to be more focused on the Centera neighborhood, because that is a planned business park, and it is a different piece of the use, because that one does have an impact beyond just Centera.
Right.
To change it to CBD also changes downtown Lebanon and elements, I think River Park is in that, has parts of River Park are in that as well. The upside to it is that all of the existing uses that sit today in Centera are part of a business park, and as a consequence, they're more or less immune from the change.
The changes don't
from-
need to be made GC1 to Legacy Inn.
Yep.
Centera things, because they're already covered by the planned business park that they were part of.
Correct. So that one's a little less acute, but there would still be, the one piece of it is if we're making changes to see the central business district in Centera, we're also impacting West Leb, River Park, and there's some other spots around the community. So that one we have to have a broader view on. Okay, is this a use that really fits for downtown West Leb?
Whereas GC1, we can be
Yeah.
a little more,
GC1's
secure in
more
our
this
changes.
neighborhood, you know, it was, the district itself was created a few years ago specifically because of this neighborhood. The thought being at the time that DHMC was looking at doing a more dense development on one of their properties, and the GC1 was created to allow that development to foster. It's turned into a development we hope to see sometime in the near term relative to a cross-mod development. But I think, again, the GC1 being the core of this neighborhood kind of defines its use in a way that gives us a broader brush to paint with.
it would be nice to see more residential over businesses in the GC1. I don't know how we can incentivize that further. I know it's in there as the kind of, one of the primary uses.
I think there's two pieces of that puzzle. As I've thought about changes that could be made, one is allowing some of the planned business park, and I use that term generically because there's several different iterations of it that are in the zoning ordinance. But right now, in the industrial planned business park, you're limited to no more than 25% of the area being housing. That's something that we could theoretically change that 25% to more of 50 or a 75% to allow for more opportunity for housing to be created in the zone. Clearly, we're moving away from the industrial uses that sort of dominate this neighborhood, and, you know, the light industrial that's sort of the big swath through the neighborhood, that the trend is we're moving away from that. And the reason we're moving away from it is because most of the developable land that sits within the community is within this neighborhood. There are a lot of constraints, as in talking to Mr. Campion, there's constraints on his piece of land, whether it's wildlife, whether it's wetlands, whether it's steep slopes. When you add all that up, there's really not a lot left. But again, having a more residential flavor for the neighborhood as opposed to just focusing in on the industrial, I would argue or opine my opinion being that if we don't have any place for people to live, it's highly unlikely we're going to see industrial development Because if we can't fill the jobs that we currently have, how are we going to attract new ones? We already have incumbent, if you talk to DHMC, if you talk to Novo Nordisk, if you talk to some of our larger employers, all of them would love to expand. But the issues they're running into is that they just simply don't have people to fill the slots that are available. And how you solve that is by promoting housing over promoting industrial development. I fully understand at the time that these zoning decisions were made, just after the Great Recession, we were looking to buy a job at any price. And we put these industrial zones in place in a way that sort of said, hey, we want to have these more industrial-focused developments. That's great and lovely thought, but the problem that is we got out of whack with our housing to industrial base ratios. And typically, they would typically say that for every one industrial job, you're going to create a need for at least four other jobs. And that's going to be support jobs. It's going to be the hairdresser, the lawyer, all those other service industry jobs that come along with it. And that ratio of 4 to 1 kind of holds true for housing as well. You need 4 houses for every one base industrial job. And right now we're we don't have that ratio quite we don't have that ratio in play right now.
I think it would be nice to be able to move things like restaurant, sandwich shop out of conditional use into permitted uses in
Yep.
that area.
That's what I was thinking.
Make it more of a by right.
So there's some like you could have a corner store in there by right.
Yeah.
So that, you could actually have services that neighborhoods need.
I think the one advantage to you, number one, I'm not opposed to that. I think it would be, the conditional use permit, the advantage of that is they're coming to see you guys anyway. So it's just one more motion on the evening that you guys would have to wrestle with. But no matter what, they're going to be coming to the planning board. The conditional use permit was really a tool that was used to try to divert traffic from having to go to both the zoning board and the planning board. But I would say that we're going to put somebody through a vigorous planning approval, adding that conditional use permit, it just makes more paperwork for Tim to have to fill out and for you guys to have to approve.
Just a question for where we are. This is an extension of the conversation we had in a work session, correct? And we got so far into it, and there was maybe just a smidge left. Are we getting into that smidge left, or do we know where we are?
That was one of the questions. Where do you guys want me to pick up?
It just strikes me that we might be going into a place that isn't necessarily on the docket for the timeline that this study item needs to address.
Yep.
I don't know that we were asked to look at the table, although we did, and that's all well and good. But there are some things that potentially our council is going to have to make decisions about and/or invite the voters to make decisions on it. And I want to make sure that we comment on those things.
Pattern zoning thing.
Correct.
Exactly.
Sorry about that.
If there are specific topics that you guys want to comment on, I would be more than willing to answer any and all questions you might have on whatever topic it might be. If you need me to do more review, I can go through more of what the ask is, but I think in general terms, if you guys are pretty familiar with what the overall asks are, I can, answer specifics if you need me to.
I think with respect to the materials that you circulated in support of the last meeting, we got pretty far through it.
Yep.
And in fact, got into our next agenda item, which was conceptual review of all things.
Yeah.
So I think we may have hit it. It's just a matter of how you heard that and whether there have been any edits, whether those can, those in our memory conform to the feedback we've provided you. And for those that weren't there, an opportunity to see what the group has already done. So I don't know that there's much more to, I don't know what there is more to.
We did, and Tim, the last work that Catherine did, I assume is what was included in the packet tonight? Correct. Okay. So it's been a sort of a three-headed monster upstairs. I've been involved. Catherine has been leading the day-to-day, and Catherine Embry, for those who don't know her, has been leading the day-to-day and pulling together all of the edits and all of the suggestions. We've had a lot coming in from different sources. not only from the land use boards, but also from, private folks. So we've been
I don't
pulling
think we have
together
anything-
that.
I don't think we
There's
have anything
nothing in the
updated in
packet.
our packet about this.
No, there's
Okay,
nothing on
we
this,
didn't get a,
which explains my sort of.
Oh, there you go.
here
That
the
might-
headlights Look.
we have incorporated into the packet.
Well and good.
If we can get a copy to everybody, that would be terrific.
What page is it in the packet?
But it is one where as
No,
we
no,
have
this was
been
an email, a separate email.
Oh, it was a separate email.
seeding.
Overlay? The
Yeah,
packet overlay?
yeah, part of the overlay. As we have been gaining input from all of the land use boards. Presently, we've had edits from zoning, we've had some, yeah.
Another question, just in the interest of time.
Yep.
We have on the books a meeting, a single issue meeting with the Brickyard on the 17th. Maybe possibly it makes sense for us to regroup and plan.
That's fine.
For that re-engagement as a follow-on to that topic. Because right now. I don't know
You're lost and not prepared?
Well-
Because you didn't have the material.
Right, and I have things in front of me that we can knock out in the next 10 minutes, and they're the minutes that we've been avoiding for a little while now.
Okay.
So I propose that.
Do you want to do this, pick this up on the 16th, and
Put
we
up 10
will make
minutes and
sure?
Pick it up with material
And-
support.
I think two things that I would ask is we're going to have a fairly quick turnaround because we're going to have to report out to city council,
Yeah,
very quickly.
but I think you delighted us with affirmative responses to all of our feedback the last
Yep.
time we got together, so it should probably be pretty.
Correct. We've been incorporating the changes that we can. I think the use code changes that Richard points out is something that, in my mind, is one that there's still more work in that subject area that needs to take place. But as we've been gaining feedback, we've been incorporating that into our master document and making changes. And Catherine has been incorporating those changes into and that's what should have been shared with you in the packet. I would note that there are a couple of minor changes to the overlay maps that were, I guess in some sense, I didn't get a chance to talk to Mark Goodwin about the edits. He overextended one area and then didn't include a property in West Lebanon that needed to be added in.
Still missed my lot.
Yeah, still missed yours. I think there was a couple of pieces here and there that we needed to get flushed out from Mr. Goodwin with the map. That was one area that I was still a little concerned with. So we will seek to do the following. One, the information that's in front of you, if you guys can read that, take notes. If you have specific feedback on anything, feel free to reach out to me or Tim or Catherine as well. And we'll try to get you a short answer. The second piece is we'll try to get a more up-to-date packet to you for your consideration. The packet views for next week could be pretty short, so as soon as we have it available, it's likely going to be an email, and then we'll let people know if you want a hard copy, you can get one.
Good.
But again, all of the notes we took from planning board, we more or less incorporated into the document in its prime source. With the exception of the maps, the maps got a little off because we had a miscommunication between myself and Mr. Goodwin.
We did send the amendments out on Thursday evening, but they weren't
Yes, I've got them.
uploaded.
I've got them now.
So I'll gladly entertain you for, 20 minutes next week.
Perfect, thank you. Other business. Review of 2025 Planning Board meeting calendar. I don't have it in front of me. It looked great when I last looked at it. Is there any discussion of that? Is everybody?
I can put it up on the screen.
Sure,
Please do.
that'd be great.
Andrew, it's easier just to look up here.
No, but I have to turn myself around and I won't do that.
Sorry.
And while we're all looking at that schedule, just a reminder, our annual meeting is in January, which is when we elect people to do things on the board. The last time it came around, it was a bit of a surprise to some of the newer folks on the board, so I'm just putting it out there.
Thank you.
Do we have appointments as well?
What's that?
Do we have appointments for committees on that?
It's just ongoing.
Yeah.
So on this calendar, just a couple things to point out, if I can remember them all. There's a few oddities, I suppose. So for example, March 17th, 2025, I believe that's the third Monday in the month, but we moved it from the second. We're trying to maintain Mondays as much as possible in this room and not anywhere
Amen.
else.
Thank you.
So whereas I think the meeting would have been March 10th, but because of a conflict, we moved it to the third.
Elections.
Yep. And so you'll have two meetings in a row in March. Let's see, October 3rd. No, that might be the only one.
October 13th.
I think there's just a note there to point out that is Columbus Day and City Hall is open. And then you have your planning work session dates on page 2 here, and I think we're proposing to have, here you go, May 27th is a Tuesday, so the fourth Monday of May is Memorial Day. And then in August, we're proposing a work session on the third Monday of the month, just based on historic staff availability. Instead of canceling the August work session, just moving it up a week, which would be helpful if folks are okay with that.
It's equally bad.
What's that?
It's just as bad no matter where you landed in
Yeah,
August.
true, yeah.
Just take the month off.
There you go. Celebrate Victory Day.
So with broader membership, it's easier to make quorum, so.
So the August one's moved to the 18th, is that what you just said?
Hmm?
The August one was moved from the 11th to the 18th, what it was? What was that?
The hearing is 11, and, I'm sorry, can you scroll to the other set of meetings, Tim?
To the workshops, work
Yeah,
sessions?
Please, yeah, working sessions.
So the 25th of August is actually on the 18th, yes?
Yep. Very good.
We have the options. You want to have a motion?
Yes, if we could have a motion to adopt the calendar, that'd be great.
May I have a motion to adopt the
2025.
calendar as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Richard. Second?
I'd second that.
Kellen, thank you. Roll call, beginning with Kathy.
Kathy votes yes.
Thank you.
Kellen votes yes.
Patrick votes yes.
Richard votes yes.
Andrew, yes.
Chair votes aye.
Eric, yes?
Brian, yes.
Thank you all. It is unanimous. Adoption of proposed planning board rules of procedure. We have looked at this
Endlessly.
Motion to extend the meeting to 9:40?
Do we have a second?
I second.
All in favor? Kathy?
Kathy, yes.
Kellen, yes.
Patrick, yes.
Richard, yes.
Andrew, yes.
Jerry, aye.
Eric, yes?
Brian, yes.
Thank you all. It is unanimous. We are extended. Planning board rules of procedure. I think we've looked at this a fair amount. I think and hope that this is a pro forma opportunity to simply bless them into being. Do we have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jerry. All in favor? Roll call beginning with Kathy.
Kathy votes yes.
Kellen, yes.
Patrick, yes.
Richard, yes.
Andrew, yes.
Jerry, aye.
Eric, yes?
Brian, yes.
Thank you all. It is unanimous. Moving on to item 7, approval of minutes. We have items A, B, and C, which are October 14th, November 12th, and November 25th. October 14th, I believe, is a bit complicated in that there's a lengthy insert edit that has been distributed.
October 14th?
Yes.
Yes, so there was, the chair had prepared a replacement section for item 3D, which was the XYZ extension application heard at the October 14th meeting. Just in light of likely litigation over that decision, we just want to make sure that it captured, fully captured the board's discussion in the most robust way possible. Paula did a great job on her draft, but the edits were extensive enough that it's just proposed as a replacement. And certainly if there are any changes or additions to what Andrew had prepared, we can talk about those now. I think Jerry might have had a couple. I can go through those. But just to be clear, does everyone know what I'm referring to? Because I passed out a hard copy at the last meeting. I don't know if does anyone need a hard copy of those edits? Because there's a second document. The second document are some smaller scale edits proposed by Jerry relative to the remainder of those draft meeting minutes. And I printed out a copy of that and gave it to you. I also emailed right before the meeting. I knew Kathy would be remote. I didn't know if anyone else would be. And so I sent out electronic copies of Andrew's edits and Jerry's edits. So with all of that, how would you like to proceed?
Could we perhaps begin with the bigger knob to turn, and that is whether folks are willing to adopt the edits that I've offered that are a somewhat more fulsome description of that part of the hearing?
Absolutely.
So moved.
Chair,
I'm sorry, Kathy?
Chair, this is Kathy. I have a question. I was recused from that particular item being discussed, but I was present for the meeting. So do I vote on this or?
That's interesting.
If you're going to have a separate motion on whether to incorporate Andrew's edits, you might as well recuse, but.
If you're okay with
And
recusing,
then also, when I recuse myself in the notes for that meeting, my name is spelled incorrectly.
oh dear. Sorry.
I know.
Sorry. So we have a motion from Richard.
Yes.
Kathy, I'm sorry, Kathy's abstaining from this. Richard has made a motion to accept the edit that I made for the October 14th meeting. Do we have a second?
Second.
Jerry, thank you so much for the second, and we'll begin the voting with, we'll do a.
Because Kathy is recusing, we
All
can
in
just do a show
favor?
of hand.
And it is unanimous amongst the members present in the room, absent the one that is recused. Now we have Jerry's edits for same meeting.
These are trivial, but I mean,
No, they're fine.
there
Do
they are.
you want to read them out?
Kenny was going to get real upset by any of the changes, so I would say.
I think they're good, too. I
I
move,
trust Jerry.
I move that we accept the additional suggested edits from Jerry.
I second. All in favor, I'm sorry, roll.
Kathy votes yes.
All in favor. It is unanimous among the members present in the room.
That's what we have to do.
Okay.
Now the amendments have been made.
25th.
Wait, now the amendments have been made. I now move that we accept the minutes as amended from Monday, October 14th.
Right. I will second. Jerry has the second. All in favor? And it is unanimous. Thank you, Richard, for catching that. Now we have minutes for the 12th and the 25th.
I will say all of these need to have LebanonNH.gov have that extra N taken out. Just all of them.
Lebanon?
Yeah, we don't live in Lebanon, but.
I missed that.
So, Mr. Chair, I still need to review the November 25th meeting minutes. Can we postpone those to?
Certainly.
We could even postpone them to next week.
We can postpone all of them
Yeah,
until next week.
that'd
Why
be
don't we
good.
do that? That would
Yeah.
be much better. So move to postpone the approval of minutes for November 12th and 25th until next week, which is the 17th.
17th?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Eric. Roll call, beginning with Kathy.
Yes.
Kellen, yes?
Patrick, yes.
Richard, yes.
Andrew, yes.
Jerry votes aye.
Eric, yes.
Brian, yes.
Thank you so much. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Oh, yes, so moved.
Thank you, Richard, and second. Thank you, Eric. Roll call, beginning with Kathy.
votes yes.
Kellen, yes.
Patrick, yes.
Richard, yes.
Andrew, yes.
Jerry votes aye.
Eric, aye.
Brian, yes.
Fastest roll call ever. Thank you, everyone. We are adjourned.
Drive safely.
Give the gavel a little bang.
Drive safely.